The blogger posts a video of himself running away as fast as he can from the giant bug man who at the last second extends his claw towards the blogger, who is sweating with horror. In the university classroom, this is almost a viral video. Everyone watches it over and over again and discusses whether it is fake or real, saying that there are tons of these on YouTube. Some people think wings are cool, like an insect superhero. Here Hunter Sue snatches the phone from the superhero fans and also watches the video. A popular 20-year-old student says insect wings are disgusting. Hunt relays the girl's offer to go out for a drink. The other guys are hungover. They went out for a drink yesterday too. And the girls are going for Hunter's sake alone. The student attacks Hunt with hugs and declares that the girls are all for it, and then the guys promise to willingly join in. Hunter Sue is a handsome and intelligent student with over 5,000 followers on Instagram and top grades, which naturally entails obligations in the form of university parties and drinking sessions. Sue sees himself at the top of the food chain, but Hunt does not consider this worldview to be infantile, because like all creatures from ants to lions, man is a herd animal. Each herd is always divided into ranks. Since Hunt is followed by crowds of envious people, it means that he is the strongest in their herd. And the guy is delighted with his university life. One of the students asks if it's okay for Hunt to go out drinking with other girls. Sue doesn't understand what he's talking about. A student points at Hillary Kim. The girl runs towards Hunt across the yard, just to ask where Sue was heading. It turns out that the guys have decided in absentia to consider Hunt and Hillary a couple, even though they aren't even dating yet. The boys invite Hillary for a drink. Hunt will be with him too. Hearing the name of the top student, the girl readily agrees to go. Hunt sees Hillary's hands reaching out to him. Contrary to all expectations, he brushes it off sharply. The girl squeals, asking what's the matter. Everyone else asks too, and Hunt feels discomfort between his shoulder blades. And he leaves, citing poor health, under the astonished gaze of the company, which he has suddenly left not for the first time. He answers all questions by saying that he has been training too much in wrestling. On the way home, he criticizes himself for his outdated repertoire of excuses. They don't have any wrestling classes. But Hunt has a secret. His situation is not much different from that of a lonely student wearing a mask. At the beginning of the semester, that guy was very sociable. But his complexes turned him into a loner as soon as people saw what he was ashamed of. One day, he overindulged in alcohol and developed a severe allergic rash on his face. His classmates looked at him with disgust, so he ran away. After that incident, his self-confidence disappeared and he became a loner. Everyone has their own secrets, revealing which would be like demonstrating one's own weakness. And the popular Hunter Sue is not thinking about this for nothing. When he comes home, the first thing he does is strip down to his waist in the bathroom. Meters of bandages fly to the floor. And the secret of the top student comes to light: the wings of a dragonfly. Every time he looks at the wings in the mirror, the guy thinks how disgusting they are. When Hunt was a schoolboy, he sprayed a room with dragonfly spray, which suddenly all crumbled into powder. The boy accidentally inhaled it and later felt unwell. The child was nauseous and had difficulty falling asleep. And the next morning I woke up with wings on my back. The boy hid under the table in horror. What if they would perceive him as a monster, study him, and conduct experiments on him? The child lost normal sleep and tried in every way to hide his acquired disability. He refused all invitations from his classmates and kept to himself for fear that his secret would be discovered. His life became lonely, but the boy directed all his efforts towards entering university. But loneliness tormented him unbearably, and the guy decided to change everything. He transformed completely. First of all, I got a fashionable haircut. The problem with the wings was solved very easily. Hunter simply folded them and bandaged them. His self-confidence returned and he was completely transformed. His facial expression became inviting. He dressed fashionably and took care of his hair. And students started reaching out to him. Girls asked for his phone number. But Hunt understands perfectly well that once people find out about his wings, everything will go down the drain. And the ill-fated wings, as if on purpose, create problems at the most inopportune moments. He would love to hang out with Hillary. This happens when Hunt doesn't undress for a long time. The wings become numb like muscles from sitting in a chair for too long. This is the reason for the guy's sudden departures from the company. Oh, how he doesn't want anyone to see his wings. With this thought, Hunter leaves the bathroom. And he's simply stunned because he comes face to face with Hillary. Both teenagers are in shock. Hillary screams that Hunter is naked. Hunt has only one thought: Did the girl not notice the wings? He wonders how the student entered his apartment. The guys suggested they have a drink at Hunt's house and gave her the address, suggesting that she go first, and she went in because the door was open. Hunt is in shock. No one warned him. And the girl behind the door continues to ask about his health. Hillary adds that Hunt often breaks down and leaves suddenly, and sometimes looks like he's in some kind of pain. The girl clarifies that the guy is not hiding anything, and immediately demands that in this case he leave the bathroom. Hillary is convinced that Hunter must now go to the cinema with her tonight. She understands that the guy is not sick with anything, but he often thinks about something, as if he is hiding something. But he's not going to tell her anything, and this upsets and offends her. Hillary recalls how, at the beginning of the semester, Hunt introduced himself as her boyfriend and thus got rid of a student who was following her around. From Hillary's point of view at the time, it seemed stupid and selfish. She didn't understand why the guy was meddling in something that wasn't his business. But now she is very grateful to Hunt, and also intends to interfere in matters that are none of her business. If a guy is worried about something, she would like to express her support. A languid Hunter thanks him, but can't say anything. So the guy just suggests going to the movies. On the street, keeping the secret quiet seems like the right thing to do to Hunt. A hooded figure watches the couple from afar. This someone casts a terrifying inhuman shadow and catches the aroma of a delicious treat. In front of the cinema, some strange people, in Hunt's opinion, ask Hillary to take a survey. She readily approaches, and the guy thinks about the upcoming show. Hunt believes that Hillary is too kind, which is why she did not refuse to participate in the survey of potential scammers. The girl comes back very pleased. She was even given a lollipop for her participation. During a horror movie, Hillary goes to the toilet, and Hunt wonders if they start dating, he will have to reveal his secret sooner or later. The guy doesn't know how Hillary will perceive his wings and whether her attitude will change. But most likely she will be scared. Therefore, he must not admit to anyone that he is a monster. Hunt decides to let things be as they are. Suddenly, the screen in the hall goes out. The audience is indignant. What happened to the electricity? And why did they cut the film off at such a moment? What did they pay money for? A security guard enters the hall and announces an evacuation. There is a suspicious armed man in the building. Spectators think it's part of the event. The guard yells that it's all real. The next second, he finds himself impaled on the creepy claw of a strange guy who appears in the doorway. At this point, panic begins in the hall. Hunter doesn't understand what's going on at all. Apparently, a strange guy killed a security guard. It's clearly not safe here. We need to leave, but Hillary hasn't returned from the toilet yet. Saliva drips from the beetle man's grinning mouth. He is happy that he has found his food and moves straight towards Hunter. The frightened guy can hardly believe his eyes. Instead of hands, the killer has the terrible claws of a praying mantis. But the guy doesn't run, but asks the creepy stranger what the hell he, a monster, is doing. Mantis clarifies that the guy called him a monster, so Hunt has never met insect people before. The monster claims that the guy also drank the insect spray, an insecticide called jungle juice. Hunter has a flashback to when he sprayed the room. And the praying mantis continues that after it changed, it began to smell the smells of other people bugs, which it eats with pleasure. Hunt runs down the hallway as the monster says how delicious these smells are, and the guy's aroma is simply magnificent. Hillary, who had come out of the toilet when the evacuation began, appears in the hallway ahead, but she could not find Hunt anywhere. Even the praying mantis notices that the girl is apparently not a coward, and he adds, "How dare she get in the way during his lunch hour?" Hunt yells at Hillary to run away from here, and the praying mantis is already approaching the girl. Security guards refuse entry to the building where an unknown armed man is on the rampage. The strange organizers of the survey report that there are still people inside. The girl in the cap is about to enter the building when she hears a shout from behind, saying that Hunter is there. At this moment, Hillary falls out of a window under the roof of the building. A praying mantis stands by the broken window and wishes the tasteless human to die. A frightened Hunt runs up to him. If nothing is done, Hillary will die. But he has never tried to fly and is not sure of success. Moreover, the whole crowd below will see the wings. And when the secret is revealed, his life will change irrevocably. Hunt asks Hillary for forgiveness, but at the same time, he can't just watch her fly to her death. In front of the astonished crowd, Hunter throws himself out of the window after the girl. The praying mantis watches what is happening with surprise. Finally, the guy catches Hillary, The praying mantis shouts at the idiot from above. No bugman could survive a fall from such a height, although he wondered what the cowardly guy would do. And the fool decided to commit double suicide. Hunter stubbornly grits his teeth and believes that even if he crashes, he made the right choice. At this moment, the guy's wings open behind his back. The praying mantis's eyes almost pop out of their sockets. Everyone wants to hide something about themselves from others. To show this secret to everyone is to reveal your Achilles heel, your vulnerability. And it's about the brutal survival of a student who suddenly becomes vulnerable. The girl who conducted the survey was stunned by the sight of wings in the city center. Someone dictates instructions into her earpiece. She listens and answers. In her opinion, it is worth inviting the guy to their university. And she takes off her cap, under which 2 long mustaches were hidden on her head. As Hunt feared, the crowd below is boisterous and filming his wings and his rescue of Hillary. The creepy mantis is surprised. It turns out the guy was hiding his wings. A confused Hunter floats in place as Hillary passes out in his arms. Oddly enough, the guy begins to get used to it, even though this is his first flight. The mantis understands that only a dragonfly, whose DNA the guy received after using the jungle juice, is capable of flying like that. And Hunt flies with the girl in his arms in search of the nearest hospital. The praying mantis is going through withdrawal symptoms in anticipation of a delicious dragonfly. But suddenly he is knocked off his feet by a blow from a student with a mustache. She screams that the video on YouTube wasn't enough, so the praying mantis is causing trouble and killing in the city center, trying to get caught. But the world must not suspect their existence. A month later, the first semester is coming to an end. But the video of the incident in the cinema is still popular among students. Everyone thinks that what's on the guy's back looks a lot like dragonfly wings. And the students agree that the guy with wings is a spitting image of Hunter. After the video instantly flooded the internet, the guy actually expected to be caught and locked in a lab. Luckily, most people dismissed the video as another fake. But for Hunt personally, history is repeating itself. 12 years ago, the kids were celebrating a classmate's birthday. Everyone was sitting at the table and enjoying cake. Only Hunt stood aside. The teacher suggested inviting him too, but the children refused. They are not friends with him. The boy never gave gifts to anyone because he had no money and no parents. Back then, as a child, Hunt just wanted to be friends with other kids. But he was different from them and could not rejoice with them all. The boy ponders this as he walks through the university campus. Suddenly, one of the students sneaks up from behind and lifts the hem of his coat. Hunter immediately waves his hand dismissively, and the student is outraged by the guy's reaction, saying that the guy simply asked him to check whether Hunt has wings. And the hapless inspector proudly returns to his company, reporting that he has almost declassified the target. The guy is offended that a month ago he was still friends with all these students, and now they are looking at him like an animal in a zoo. Alas, the Hunter everyone was drawn to is no more. The guy feels lonely again and even thinks it would be better to study him in a lab. He hasn't been on social media for a long time and decides to log in now while he's on public transport. Hunt sees that many people have unfollowed him, but he doesn't care because Hillary is still following him. The guy found out in the hospital that she had only woken up that day. He is sure that it is enough that she will be next to him. But as soon as Hunt enters the room, Hillary hides in the corner of the bed and screams at him to stay away. The medical staff pulls the guy away, not allowing him to approach the screaming girl. The guy can't believe his eyes because Hillary was so kind. But now she doesn't even raise her eyes to him. Hillary calls the guy a monster and asks him not to come near her again. Hillary also unfollows the guy on social media. A broken Hunt stands at home in front of the mirror, realizing that all his troubles are due to his wings. You just need to cut off the damn body part. The guy is already holding scissors in his hands, but he leaves them, cannot make up his mind and gets angry, considering himself pathetic. Another month has passed. Everyone still avoids Hunt. In any group, there is someone who falls out of it like an ugly duckling. Many ugly ducklings decide to commit suicide. Hunter also has no strength to suffer any longer, and he steps off the roof. But those same ill-fated wings do not allow him to die. Suddenly, the girl in the cap says that she envies the guy and would also like to have such wings. Hunt is shocked. He realized when and where she came from. And most importantly, it is not clear how she manages to stand on the wall. And the girl asks if it is not stupid to seek death with such wings. But since the guy is so unhappy with them, there is a way to return to a normal human appearance. If Hunt is interested, she suggests starting by going inside the building. And she takes off her cap, and on her head she has a long mustache. On the stairs inside, a girl complains about the cold outside, and Hunter demands to know how to become a simple guy again. She doesn't know all the nuances of the process, but if Hunt goes to an interview at their university, he will ask the professor about everything himself. There is a bus waiting for them at the building. If the guy goes with her, he will find out everything. Hunt is unsure if he can trust the girl, having almost been eaten by a praying mantis. She offers an alternative, another unsuccessful jump from the roof. But she promises that if the guy goes with her, he will forget about loneliness. The guy gets on the bus, but he has nowhere to go anyway. On the bus, a girl asks Hunt if he is familiar with the can of jungle juice spray that mixed insect and human DNA. This spray used to be in great demand due to its effectiveness. But if you kill an insect, its DNA gets into the human body. That's why the bug people appeared. The inventor of this remedy is unknown, but it has infected many people. Hunter is surprised that even the search engine doesn't show anything about jungle juice. The girl explains that they covered up the tracks, and the bus just arrived at the scene. It seemed to the guy that they should still be in the mountain tunnel. They try to avoid contact with people, so they live in a hidden place. Their campus city nest is hidden inside a mountain. Hunt sees before him a whole world with many insect people. The guy can't believe that there are plenty of people like him, plus here they know the secret to becoming a simple person again. A hardened gourmet mantis with his claws shackled instantly notices a familiar guy, the coveted dragonfly, from the window. But the guards urge the praying mantis to move on, and they add that from now on the killer has become a guinea pig. The mantis only growls angrily in response, and at the same time he licks his lips after seeing the dragonfly again. Surprised, Hunt looks around, but on all sides there are only insect people. The girl confirms that all the local inhabitants, just like the guy, became victims of jungle juice. Officially it is a university, but in fact it is a refuge for such people. She offers the guy to look around while she needs to inform the department about the arrival of the only new student this semester. The girl welcomes Hunter to Nest. The guy couldn't even imagine that in Korea there was such an amazing university where people of all ages were together. Moreover, each insect has absolutely different parts, which no one even thinks of hiding. Hunt sees a strange, middle-aged man with a honey-smeared chest on a pedestal under an arch, with beetles swarming around him. The stranger explains that he gives honey to the beetles, and they supply him with protein in the cycle of life. The boy watches with distaste as the man eats the bug. Hunter moves on, thinking that he is unlikely to meet any normal people here, and the man looks after him and crunches on the beetles with gusto. Before he can take even a couple of steps, a strange beetle eater appears next to him and lifts his cloak, asking what kind of beetle he is. Hunt flies away in fright. The man, as if nothing had happened, comments that the wings are in excellent condition, flexible, meaning they can be easily hidden under clothing and do not break. Then the weirdo asks why the guy is hiding good wings. Hunter explains that he came to part with them and walks away, and the stranger calls him a fool. At the university, Hunt meets Hank Mudd, a professor at the Department of Insect Advantages. Mad thanks student Gina Park, the girl with the mustache, for bringing Hunter. In the research building of Nesta, shaking hands with the professor, the guy excitedly realizes that the interlocutor knows a way to return to human form. Hank Mudd suggests starting by watching a college graduation video. The best graduates are honored with the Cinderella ceremony. Hunt sees a man with a fly's head drinking some kind of drink. Then the fly's cover literally peels off the girl like a carnival costume. She transforms into a normal person before our eyes. The professor explains that their research department accidentally produced this drink while studying jungle juice. They isolated the insect DNA using the principle of jungle juice. The invented medicine completely restores the normal human condition and is called Cinderella. Hunt begs for the medicine. Hank regretfully refuses. The drug is created from concentrated jungle juice, which means that only a tiny amount can be produced. Therefore, unfortunately, it is not possible to restore everyone's normal appearance. But for the most thirsty, you just need to enroll in their university and become a top student in the department. The best students are guaranteed the medicine. Gina asks what the guy will decide. Hunt sees no other option than to become a top student. Pak objects that it is possible not to enroll and just stay here to live, but then there is no chance of getting medicine. Hunt is glad that it's not about money and studying doesn't scare him. He's ready to transfer. A few hours later, the lawn in front of the lecture hall is in full swing. It's admissions day. Students discuss whose lectures they are going to attend. Professor Mad is the most popular. Hunt, to his surprise, transferred instantly and is now a new student in the Insect Advantage Department. Hunter spots Gina Park and the guy who was interviewing her outside the movie theater. Gina hands the boy a booklet with 3 main courses listed. Hunt needs to choose one. He thinks the course on Nest's Principles of Protection is the best, with an emphasis on individual study and more than half of the students being top students from the previous semester. Professor Mud Hunt liked him, so he decided to apply for his course. A fight breaks out near Hunter. The girl with the scorpion tail beats up Gina's partner in the polls. The girl screams that she warned the guy not to show up at the university. He is indignant that she immediately starts fighting. Gina asks not to be afraid, this happens often here. She throws the fighters in different directions and notices that they have decided to start the new semester with a fight. The guy feels awkward about the remark made by the head of the department, a representative of the department. Gina advises Hunt, who had no idea she was a class monitor, to take the entrance exam. The guy arrives at the auditorium 10 minutes before the start, and he understands that he is unlikely to have a chance to become a simple student. The main thing in university studies is to manage your time correctly and not miss a good course, no matter how well you grasp the material. Therefore, Hunter is determined to get to Professor Madhu at all costs. At this time, a professor from the same department, John G., enters Madhu's office and asks about the new student. Hank knows that John has already met with Hunt and asks how he likes the new guy. John recalls the meeting. Mad asks G's opinion on whether Hunter Sue will pass the entrance test. John G. is sure that the newcomer has no chance. The exam begins. Everyone is blown away from their seats. Only the puzzled Hunter remains in the auditorium. John comes in and declares that this is the exam, and only the strongest will pass it. Hunter is completely confused about where everyone ran off to and what's going on. Suddenly, someone timidly clarifies that he just transferred, which means he was not present at the briefing for the exam. Hunt turns around. There's a positively harmless young man in the audience, a bee, offering to tell him what's going on. The point is to find a professor hiding in the forest who will give a flash drive to the 16 students who discover him first. You're enrolled when you insert the flash drive into the computer, so there's no time to chat. B finds out that Hunt wants to be in Professor Mud's class, which gives the highest grades. Chell himself intends to become a top student in the department. Hunt thanks him for the explanation and, thinking what a nice guy this bee is, sets off to search. Hunter understands that time has been lost. It would be worthwhile to find a high place to look where everyone rushed to. And then he remembers about wings. From above you can see the places you need to get to, marked with flags. It is only unknown which flag the professor will be flying, but you can also see students fighting over a flash drive. Hunt feels that behaving this way for the sake of the course is too much, and the guy rushes towards the flag at point A, where most of the students are heading. Professor Hank Mudd was comfortably settled there. The guy lands hard because it is impossible to fly that fast with your eyes open. But I felt all the benefits of dragonflies flying. Mudd hands Hunter the last flash drive and advises him to be careful on the way back, because the flash drive still needs to be inserted into the audience's computer. Hunter goes back and Mad announces to everyone who arrived after him that there are no more places in the course Principles of Nest Protection. Then Hank Mudd clicks on the newsletter on his phone, and everyone who wants to receive a mailing list with a list of targets who already have flash drives for the course. Hunter is stunned to see himself on the target list. John G., lying in the hammock, chuckles with interest as he sees Hunt on the list. Gina Park is surprised to see Hunter on the list. It turns out that this is exactly the message that some of those who want to take the exam are waiting for whom the exam starts right now. From all sides of the forest, Hunt hears the sounds of notifications and realizes that he started to rejoice too early. Almost immediately, a longhorn beetle attacks it, capable of destroying the tree. The big guy demands to give him the flash drive. On the other side, grasping hands reach out, whips growing from the back, a whip-legged spider. And there are more and more people around who want to take away a flash drive at any cost. Hunter runs away, wondering why the exam sucks so much. Then a young bee-boy calls him from the hollow, suggesting that he hide quickly. The chase is approaching inexorably. Hunter, seeing a familiar, harmless face, dives into a hollow, where he and the bee wait out the chase. Hunt thanks the boy who helped him out of the kindness of his heart for the second time. Bee explains that considering him kind is a stupid idea and holds something to Hunt's forehead. A bee's sting comes off the fingernail and sticks right into the guy's forehead. Hunter's body is instantly paralyzed, and the cunning bee calmly takes the flash drive from the limp hand. B explains that honeybee venom does not immobilize for long. Hunt looks with disappointment at the bee's jubilation at having obtained the coveted flash drive. It was simply to his advantage to pretend to be a friend. B says Hunt is a fool for thinking he'd help him. They're all rivals. The point of this entrance exam is to force students to fight so that only the strongest will pass. Chell will try to make sure the flash drive does its job, and he wishes Huntu great success next year. As he flies away, the bee smiles, saying that someone like Hunter will never be the best in the department. Hunt understands that if the flash drive is stolen, he will definitely not become the best, so he takes the sting out of his forehead, and he rushes after him. Otherwise, he will not become a normal person. B asks if the guy is slowing down because of the poison and asks him not to try, because the poison will only spread throughout the body faster. Hunter keeps his eyes on the retreating bee, realizing that he needs to catch up with him. And suddenly he begins to see where the thief will be in advance. Dragonfly is the king of hunting. Success rate is 95%. This is all thanks to the faceted structure of the eyes, which contain thousands of individual ocelli that record the slightest movement at 360 degrees. These fantastic eyes predict the trajectory of the victim. As soon as Hunt decided to catch up with the bee, he became the victim. The thief realizes that the dragonfly is hunting. At that moment, Hunter's fist connects with the bee's jaw. Gina inserts the flash drive into her laptop, and the long-awaited message appears. Class enrollment complete. A survey partner at the cinema asks if everything will be okay with the new guy. If you don't make it in time, you'll automatically fail. The moment Hunter hit the bee in the jaw, the boy's hand unclenched and the precious flash drive flew down. Hunt rushes to catch his ticket to normal life, but another applicant gets ahead of him, and then he immediately rushes away. The guy intends to catch up with the thief, but then a limp falling body of a bee flies past. Hunter understands that the boy, knocked out by the first blow, will simply break when falling from such a height. If she doesn't leave him to die, she'll miss the flash drive. By and large, the bees, of course, attacked first. That is, he himself will be to blame. But Hunt can't turn a blind eye to him. It's not human, so he saves the boy. He drags the bee to a tree branch. And he himself grieves over the lost flash drive. Now he will definitely not be able to catch the thief. Suddenly, his body stops obeying him, and Hunt falls straight through the tree crown to the ground. The guy thinks that it's the bee venom that's still working. He almost loses consciousness. But he comes to his senses from Professor John's rude order to get up. Hunt sees a strange beetle eater in front of him, who this time is gobbling up cookies. John states that there are 5 minutes left until the end of the exam, but the flash drive should have run out by now, and he adds that the guy will have to wait until next year, but then Cinderella might end. Hunt screams that he was attacked and his flash drive was taken away. It's not fair. For John, these are not arguments and not a reason to retake the test. The professor believes that in Nesta, you need to be strong and fight for your goal until you win. The exam was monitored by video surveillance. The students' lives were not in danger. After jungle juice, humans become weapons, possessing pincers, horns, claws, and insect venom. John wonders if the guy really thought that at a university for dangerous people, students just read textbooks in classrooms. If this is what the guy was aiming for, then he needs to join the civil defense of Nesta. Then he can live peacefully as an insect man. The professor throws a cookie bag at Hunt and asks him to throw it away since he has nothing else to do. And he adds that the guy should take care of the planet and not forget to sort the garbage. Hunt wonders if he would have had time to die if he had abandoned the bee, and immediately reproaches himself for his base thoughts. But he gets furious when he remembers that the professor also gave him instructions on sorting, although it is not clear what to sort in one package. Hunter opens the crumpled package and sees inside a flash drive, and he remembers that there are still 5 minutes left. Professor Mudd approaches Professor G and is surprised that John gave the flash drive to a new student who seems to be annoying the big guy. John allegedly wants to have a whipping boy. Hunt is racing towards the university, but he can't fly fast with his eyes open, and it's hard to land with his eyes closed. He remembers his glasses. With them, the dust and wind don't hurt his eyes as much. The guy instantly increases his speed. A group of people who want to avoid the stress of running through the forest but still get in are waiting for the lucky ones returning near the university. They see Hunter flying up, and they are preparing to attack in order to take the flash drive. But they are only blown by the wind from the passing flyer. Nevertheless, the sly ones rush after him, hoping to take the flash drive away already in the classroom. A survey partner runs up to them and reminds them that such behavior is against the rules. He trips up the sly fellow. The student falls head over heels to the ground and raises his head, cursing at the bastard who tripped him. Above him are already standing first-year students of the Department of Advantages of Insects, Sam and the scorpion girl Hannah, and behind them looms the headman. As soon as Gina passed, she received a text message from Professor G saying, "If you have nothing else to do, help out a newbie." This is a completely unusual request for a professor. Hunter bursts into the classroom. He inserts the flash drive, and he sees a message that he has entered a course in practical bug control. Hunter is simply stunned. Although he didn't get into Professor Mad's course, he thinks it's inappropriate to be capricious. You can become the best student in any course. Here comes another message. Students in the practical bug control course are advised that their introductory lesson will be held today in the main auditorium. The endless day has no end, and Hunt heads to the main auditorium, from where he is thrown out by security guards due to the lack of a student card. No explanations are valid. You can't get through without a document. As if on cue, Gina appears next to him and hands the guy his student ID. They go to the lecture together. Hunt is not going to give up. Even with a strict teacher, you can become the best student. Gina calls him brave. As soon as the guy enters the classroom, two female students recognize him as the dragonfly guy from the movie theater. It turns out that the locals also watch YouTube, and Hunter is recognizable. Sam reproaches the guy for showing off his wings in front of a crowd. Then, for a month, the entire department spent shaking up social networks and barely managed to prevent the government from locking him up in a lab. Hunt is stunned but remembers Gina saying that they erased all traces. Now it's clear to him why everything was put on hold so quickly. Hunter was protected by these students. Gina clarifies that he spread his wings solely to save the girl. This is clear to everyone present here. Gina would have done the same thing if she were in the guy's place. The professor gave her an assignment, so she leaves the classroom. Sam grumbles that the headmistress is only so kind because Hunt is new. Right then, a thug student from the back row slams his head into the desk. Sam lies face down on his desk, splattered with blood. The bully rudely declares that he has a request for everyone. At this time, 4 more students enter the classroom with bats in their hands. The impudent man, smiling, demands that he be given the place of the best student. The students are simply shocked, and the thug, they say, is eager to get his hands on the medicine, so the others will have to help him. To this end, he will simply take away everyone's student ID cards and go to lectures alone, since security will not let anyone else through. The impudent guy mumbles that he is simply a genius and at the same time takes away students' money. Hunter is outraged and refuses to give up his ticket. The bully is glad that the bug flies towards him on its own, like a ball into a goal. Hunter opens his eyes in the medical center. Gina is in the room with him and she tells him where the guy is. Pac says that when she returned to the auditorium, 2 were covered in blood and unconscious, and she carried them here. Hunter recalls losing his student ID. The headman reassures her that she can simply get a new ticket, and suggests that she rest while she goes to order her student tickets. Hunt expresses his gratitude and thinks how lucky he is to have such a caring and kind member of the department. But then again, Hillary was like that at first too. Hunt finds out that Sam has also come to his senses and remembered that their student IDs were taken away. Hunter reassures her that Gina has gone to get new tickets. Sam calls him a moron and explains that he could have just taken the tickets of the real competitors, not the entire group. And he adds how many students, in Hunt's opinion, can be done in a day. It then dawns on Hunter that Gina went to the showdown alone. The gang is already waiting for the headman by the lake. Gina clarifies that no one will return the student ID cards for free. The brute simply glows with pleasure. He is only interested in eliminating the strongest one who rushed to save the weaklings. The plan was designed to lure the best student of the first semester of the practical bug control course, Gina Park. But it is not for nothing that it is considered the best. The big guy calls his henchmen idiots, and he adds that it is impossible to cope with a student on Earth. But he threatens to throw the tickets into the water. Gina immediately rushes towards the thug, and at the same time it ends up on his territory in the water. And the diving beetle is the most dangerous predator of aquatic insects. There is practically no chance of dealing with it in the water. The swimmer drowns the girl, saying that she is on his way to becoming the best student. But killing the headman right at the university is too difficult. Gina starts to choke. The swimmer is happy because if she just drowns, no one will understand anything. The henchmen with bats watch the drowning, complaining of pain in the places where Gina hit. Then something flies past them at lightning speed. The next second, Gina is already above the water. And like a true class leader, he asks whether he should not adhere to human methods despite his desire to become the best student. Hunter swings at the swimmer in a rage. The henchmen recognize the flying idiot from the class. The thug himself chuckles at how strange it is that the bug flies after his blow. So the bug needs to die. The dragonfly's compound eyes see the movements of the diving beetle in advance, and they are not nearly as fast as they seem to the naked eye. Gina screams at Hunt to leave. The guy flies away, but shouts that he had everything under control. Gina objects that the swimmer is much stronger than all the others. And water is his element. We need to get to the shore. And the thug shakes an armful of students' things over the water. Hunt believes that only freaks fight with superior forces and where it is best for them. Gina asks him not to get involved in this showdown and to leave, because their target is her. They will most likely give up their student IDs when they get what they want. Gina adds that it was originally only her that was involved, and that the others were involved by accident. Hunter recalls her own words saying that he won't be alone. The guy agrees, that's how it is. That's why he didn't come here alone. At this point, Sam begins to actively pile on the swimmer's hangers-on. He, the locust, came to return the student ID. And locusts are excellent hunters, using their strong spiked legs. The swimmer is disappointed that Sam recovered quickly. He was next on the list to be taken apart after Gina. The diving beetle catches movement out of the corner of its eye. And Hunter fails to snatch the student ID. The diving beetle screams that the bug came near him in vain. Hunt counters that all he has to do is dodge the blows. The swimmer is puzzled by the miracles on the turns that the guy demonstrates. The bully does not understand what kind of bug he is. During the maneuvers, Hunt takes aim at snatching the student's cards. Due to its speed, it puts kinetic force into the blow. On land, this would be enough to knock down a water beetle. But in water, the damage is halved. Plavenet suggests resolving the conflict verbally, but he glances sideways at Gina, who is still in the water. Sam rubs his shoulder and is indignant that he got henchmen with bats. Gina almost made it to the shore when one of her henchmen tried to grab her. An elbow strike knocks the hapless student down. The swimmer declares that all he needs to do is kill the elder. At this moment, Hunt flies up and lifts the swimmer out of the water by its claws. In the air, the thug is no longer in his own domain, but in Hunt's element. The guy says it doesn't matter how much the swimmer wants Cinderella, because his methods are not human. With these words, he snatches up a bunch of student papers. There is no point in trying to become a human being if you can't even call a bastard a bug. Thus, the student cards were won back. But by the time I returned to university, the introductory lecture had already taken place. Classmates got their tickets back without even knowing who did it. It was Gina who begged him not to tell anyone anything, and Hunter couldn't refuse her. Although he didn't manage to get to the first lecture, the guy gets a new home. And the student dorm is not so bad at all, and the department's uniform is simply awesome. It just so happened that Sam was my roommate, who immediately offers to have a drink. Gina and Hannah come in with beer. They are planning to celebrate the start of the semester and invite Hunt to join them. For the first time since the incident at the cinema, Hunt relaxes and feels at ease. At this time, in the forest outside the university, a drooping water beetle reports that he did not kill the headman. The insect-headed girl takes the report and notes that the goal was to attract attention. She reminds that those who fail to complete the hunt will be eliminated. The swimmer yells that on the next try he will kill the girl and get Cinderella. The girl declares that they don't need Cinderella at all. After these words, she takes off. Over the corpse of the swimmer, she wonders how such a big guy couldn't cope with the newcomer. But nevertheless, the head will be happy, because their search was successful. The next day, Hunt is nervous before his first lecture. Gina reassures me there must be a simple test, she will help. Professor John enters and announces that there will be a simple test, as promised. The results of the test will affect the grade. However, he has a huge chainsaw in his hands, and the professor reports that fatal outcomes are possible. Hunter is in shock. The test takes place on a training ground outside the university. The professor chases students with a chainsaw. Hunt doesn't understand where this beetle eater came from and why he's chasing everyone around trying to kill them. But Sam explains that the strange guy is actually a professor in the department, something Hunt had no idea about. And Gina adds that the point of the course is to learn how to use the acquired skills in combat conditions, because their goal is to fight guys like a praying mantis that almost ate a guy. The professor adds that he spoke about this at the introductory lecture, which they skipped. The abilities of insects are a real weapon, and not everyone uses it for good. The students need to be able to fight, and Nesta needs to find and protect all the insect people. This test is like a game of hide and seek. Whoever the professor catches is eliminated and loses his chance to play Cinderella. Sam is surprised by the professor's speed, but Hunter comes to the rescue of his roommate. And John is convinced that Hunt calculated the chainsaw's trajectory with the dragonfly's compound eyes. The professor notices that the guy is almost like a real dragonfly. At these words, Hunt remembers how Hillary called him a monster. The teacher took advantage of the boy's momentary confusion. His paw was about to grab Hunt, but Gina manages to snatch Hunter right from under the professor's nose. She asks the guy to pull himself together, otherwise he will be caught. All that's left is for Sam to break away. He throws earth in the professor's face. John yells that children have no respect for their elders since they throw earth. A curtain of dust envelops the professor. The Trinity runs away while the teacher is not looking. In the underground detention center of Nesta, a mysterious young lady steps over the bodies of guards, and he asks the praying mantis if he's still alive. She would like to release the prisoner as quickly as possible, but she only has a regular student ID, which will not disable the security system. So she prepared herself. Then a bee runs up with a security card for their professor's office. The girl thanks the bee, who is trying to understand why he stole the professor's thing. He doesn't know this girl and doesn't understand how he got here. The stranger asks him not to worry about nonsense, and at the same time she opens the prisoner's cell. The praying mantis comes out and sees two insect people at once. The delicious aroma makes him salivate. The girl notices that this is exactly the kind of behavior the praying mantis would have expected from the leader. She pushes the bee towards the freed prisoner. The praying mantis sees food in front of it, and the girl watches the terrible meal. She notices that even after transforming into a bug, the blood is still red. Out of breath, Hunter, Gina, and Sam try to catch their breath after running halfway through the lecture. The professor caught most of the students. Hunt can't believe that all the captured ones will fly out, but Gina thinks that the professor is not joking. The guy is upset that he didn't get into Professor Mad's course. Gina consoles him that the class will be over in an hour. He needs to hold out a little bit. It's just that Professor G has this method of teaching. Nearby, a professor catches up with two students. One of them falls and twists her ankle. But the professor doesn't want to hear anything. In real life, the enemy doesn't care what's wrong with her leg. And the chainsaw roars over the girls' heads. But Hunter stops his hand, who claims that the professor is overdoing it for the first day. Sam and Gina are shocked by the guy's antics. John states that in real life the girls would have already died, and reminds that the praying mantis would not have been stopped by the guy's lectures. But the professor changes the conditions of the test. If someone can hit him once before the end of the class, he will forgive all of today's mistakes. But if they can't, then all three will fly out. John thinks Hunter has a long road ahead of him and needs to understand his own strength rather than worry about others. The girl and the praying mantis were already in the forest outside the university, when suddenly the beetle smelled a familiar, delicious scent. The praying mantis is in anticipation. This time the coveted dragonfly is doomed. Hunter thinks that the requirement to deliver only one blow is trivial, but at least everyone will be able to learn more. But the first attempt epically flies by under the caustic remark that in real life the guy clearly hasn't fought. The professor notes the student's lethargy and slowness. Hunt keeps trying, and John keeps reminding him of the exception when time runs out. Sam and Gina realize that this way they are facing expulsion. Hunt decides to use the compound eyes, and John sees that the guy subconsciously senses a victim in the enemy. Before Hunter has time to rejoice that he was able to reach the teacher, he is already lying on the ground. Sam and Gina are angry. The students are horrified. And John asks if the guy expected the victim to just stand still. Hunter realizes that the professor is out of his league. The guy doesn't understand what kind of bug the professor is. John cannot use insect powers, although the jungle juice made him the same as Hunt. But from using the power, he experiences side effects that his body can no longer withstand due to his age. But he does have a weapon, a chainsaw. Hunt thinks this means of self-defense is too much. But the students are young guys. They can easily use their strength and theoretically should give the teacher a hard time. John places a toy dragonfly on Hunt's chest. He jumps up in panic. According to G, the guy denies his own insect nature, which limits his strength. The professor asks Hunt what he knows about dragonflies, which are helpless without wings. Students must understand how their powers work and to do this they must accept that they themselves are insects. At these words of the professor, applause breaks out. This is the insect-headed girl thanking John G. for a wonderful lecture. The girl continues, saying that everyone is unique and so on, and the professor will scare them a lot, even if it's just pretend. She instantly throws the student away, saying that it's terrible. Sam lunges at the girl in a rage, and then her sting immediately penetrates him. Sam loses consciousness. The girl consoles him that it won't hurt because he's paralyzed. Hunt doesn't understand who this young lady is who keeps saying that Sam would make a good snack. The girl has already fed one student, but the mantis is still hungry. Hunt sees Professor G impaled on a praying mantis claw. What happened in the cinema is repeated. Hunter is just as helpless and scared, and the nasty praying mantis also drools. Gina notices that the mantis, who was supposed to be in isolation, has changed since their last meeting. He is like an animal that was starving and now he is fed. The girl says that there is enough for a snack for two. They need to hurry. Gina asks the professor to hold on. The girl turns around and says goodbye until we meet again. Gina wants to pounce on her, but the professor holds her back. Fighting with strangers without the university's permission is prohibited. He is now contacting the department. The headman shouts that it may be too late. But John is unyielding. The students are not up to it. However, Hunt reminds that if he fails to complete the task, he can ignore the university rules. John yells for the guy to come back. Hunter realizes that he was gripped by terror of the praying mantis, and he could only watch as his neighbor was kidnapped. Therefore, he is obliged to catch up with the kidnappers. The professor is upset that the student did not understand why he first taught how to run away and not how to fight. In nature, even the strongest insect has an opponent that is too tough for it. That is why the professor begins his training with escape, not with a fight. The natural enemy of dragonflies is praying mantis. The mantis praises the boy's surprise attack, but it is useless because he can smell him. Hunt tries not to panic and dodge the creepy claws. The guy seizes the moment when the praying mantis swings and hits it in the jaw. A weak attack only results in Hunt knocking his knuckles off. And the praying mantis broadcasts that it has an exoskeleton. Its body becomes tougher after it absorbs another bugman. He was about to leave, and then the dragonfly came to be eaten. Thoughts of death creep into Hunter. The girl and a muffled Sam watch the fight. As if in a half-dream, Sam feels like he is being called. He manages to open his eyes and sees Hunt calling him. Sam doesn't understand what's going on around him. The girl is surprised that the poison quickly wears off. She then decides to finish off Sam, who is taken as food for the praying mantis. But then Hunter wedges himself between them. He yells at Sam to run while he tries to buy time. Sam screams as the guy manages to throw himself chest first into the embrasure without the slightest hesitation. Hunter has no regrets. Now it's Sam who pulls him out from under the mantis's claw. The girl with the beetle does not understand how the students jumped away so quickly and so far, and they continue to move away by meters with each jump. The hind legs of locusts and grasshoppers are designed for hunting and high-speed movement. Their jumps are greater than their body length. Moreover, Sam jumps without any effort at all. The girl suggests that the praying mantis surrender since he cannot catch the dragonfly. He doesn't want to give up, because he smells the fugitives nearby. They're just hiding. Sam yells that Hunt looks like a cutlet, and it's a shame he didn't understand the lesson. If you can't win, get out. Hunt states that if the mantis is not killed, anyone unfortunate enough to enter the nest may die. The professor called for reinforcements from the university, but the praying mantis must be held back until they arrive. Hunter has an idea. Gina moans over the wounded man. She wants to go for Sam, but she can't leave the teacher in this state. She feels like a whirlwind is passing by. The praying mantis follows the girl's trail like a hunting dog, but suddenly the smell appears to the side. In an instant, the girl finds herself tied to a tree. The mantis is surprised by the guy's speed and gets kicked in the jaw, but as expected, it doesn't hurt him. The praying mantis screams that he is at the top of the food chain and the bug won't harm him in any way. According to Hunt's plan, he will distract the praying mantis, and Sam will use his high-speed jumps to chase it for weapons. The professor acknowledges the victory of the students, who stole the weapon right from his hands. Within a couple of minutes, Hunter is already armed. Sam yells at him to saw the damn praying mantis. Of course, in nature, a dragonfly cannot defeat a praying mantis. But this only applies to the insect world. People are much more inventive. The praying mantis screams, "Where is his hand?" Sam notices that Hunter is turning out to be ruthless. The mantis creaks that they are useless larvae, who dared to make a victim out of him. And again he pounces on the boys with one remaining claw. The loss of a limb clearly added to the Mantis's rage. He trims the chainsaw for spare parts, and he yells that without a weapon the bug can only run away. Hunter himself understands that without a saw he has nothing to attack with. Here Sam actively joins in, not intending to lose the fight to the one-armed man. Nature has cruel solutions to prevent uncontrolled reproduction of individuals. Every species has natural enemies. Hunt yells at the Mantis to let go of Sam and at the same time lunges at the one-armed man. The Mantis instantly switches to the dragonfly. Hunter can't escape his claw. The guy desperately doesn't want to die. Suddenly he finds himself at the epicenter of an explosion. The Mantis is thrown back by the blast wave, and the professor criticizes Hunt's pitiful state. He considers what he saw to be a pitiful sight, and Hunt doesn't understand how the teacher was able to heal. He was cured by reinforcements from the university. There is a specialist in Nesta who can handle such injuries. John feared that the students were already dead, but they managed to fight with dignity, and the professor silently approves of how the newcomers managed to deal with the natural enemy. John states that the last time the Mantis was lucky enough to attack unexpectedly, but it won't work a second time. The praying Mantis doesn't care how many beetles there are. He intends to eat them all. The professor claims that the praying Mantis managed to ruin his first lecture this semester and also put holes in his body. The Mantis is already attacking in a jump and John's hand begins to smoke. Hunt stares wide-eyed and doesn't understand what's going on. The bombardier beetle mixes chemicals in its body and creates heat. During combat, heated elements of the mixture are ejected, creating an explosion. Hunter realizes that the professor is a bombardier beetle, and John G. takes a dynamite stance. The bombardier's chemical mixture is fired from its rear abdomen and can reach temperatures of up to 100 degrees Celsius. The next moment, the professor stands over the ashes. The praying Mantis smolders like a firebrand. John demonstrated the true potential of his insect complex. Hunter understands that the complex is the name given to the powers that came from insects. The scale of the explosion is impressive. Hunt remembers John talking about the side effects of using his powers, and now his hands are shaking badly. John explains that the same applies to all insect people. The professor has long mastered his complex, and at the moment his body will no longer be able to recover. And if the guy doesn't want everything to turn out just as badly, then he should quickly master his powers. Afterwards, everyone returned to the university. Hunt had lacerations on his body, bruises, and a cracked chest, and Sam with bee venom poisoning and facial injuries. And on the neighboring beds they discussed that the praying Mantis has been placed in isolation again. But now the security will be increased. But the girl in the mask disappeared. Hunter took his teacher's advice and studied information about dragonflies. At night, when Hunt falls asleep, Sam, like a sleepwalker, gets up and leaves the room. He stares blankly and moves with a throbbing burn on his neck. Sam comes to the forest where a girl is waiting for him. She claims that the university is a terrible place, deceitful and hypocritical, like a cage with a praying Mantis in it. The girl is an ampulicide who injects her victim with a neurotoxin and turns them into a zombie. Saying that Nest is incapable of protecting her, she places her hands on Sam's throat. But then John G. burst in between them. The professor was sure that she would appear, so he did not remove the sting from Sam's neck. Whatever she was planning, he would be able to stop it. To begin with, he offers to talk to Galya Shin. Hunter noticed that Sam left the room like a sleepwalker. Of course, he followed his neighbor, and he doesn't understand at all what's happening. And what did the professor suggest to a certain Galya Shin to chat about? John states that Galya left 5 years ago and he is interested in how she is doing. Galya Shin notes that they are not here to chat, but in theory, John should ask why she is doing this. John thought it would be a way to show respect to a former student who had long since disappeared from view. But if Galya wants it that way, the professor raises his flaming hand to strike. An explosion follows. John is ready to beat Galya and return her to Nest. She just laughs in response, saying, "That's heartless." The professor asks if she has the right to talk about cruelty after killing 8 workers and 2 students. John asks why she does this. Another explosion follows. Galya advises the professor not to get excited because the worst is yet to come. Another explosion throws Galya back. Then Professor Mudd appears and tells everyone to stop. According to him, there will be security here soon, so it's better to disperse if Galya doesn't want bloodshed. And Hank tells John that there is clearly a leader behind Galya. It is better to let her go and keep an eye on her. The cries of approaching guards are heard, who are busy putting out the fire after G's explosion. Galya agrees to retreat, but he promises to come back and kill them both. She will come to the university again. The security guards arrived and put out the fire. Hank reproaches John for going alone and wounded. Security will be watching Galya Shin. But before he returns, John has something to discuss. Professor G notices Hunt holding a limp Sam. John carries Sam over his shoulder like a reed. Hunt clarifies that once the stinger is removed, there will be no problems, and Sam will not remember anything in the morning. John asks not to tell about what Hunt saw. Galya Shin studied with him, but 5 years ago she left Nest after an incident. Nothing has been heard of her to this day. If the students find out about her, there will be panic. They will be told everything, but later. Hunter will remain silent, but in return asks to teach him combat techniques. He would have become a praying mantis's lunch if it weren't for the professor. That's why Hunter wants to become stronger. The professor is surprised that the student wants a deal, but he likes the guy's attitude. A couple of days later, Nesta's dining room is crowded. Sam, with his mouth full, claims that a couple of days ago he woke up covered in leaves. At the checkout counter, they notice Hannah, a Scorpio girl. She should be in their class, but she's a special case. Gina explains that the jungle juice made them insect people, but sometimes a person gets arthropod DNA instead of insect DNA. These cases are being studied to see how different insect species may be affected. Such students may be taken for testing. Hunter asks what kind of insect Gene is. He wouldn't have suspected anything at all if it weren't for the antennae. Gina evasively replies that it is an insect related to the praying mantis. Hannah is heading towards them, who immediately kicks Sam out. Hannah slumps in Sam's chair and announces that group projects start tomorrow. Gina explains that the topics of the projects are always different, but usually it is not too difficult. Only from time to time you come across problematic hybrids. Hunt notes that he may have to fight other hybrids. He considers this a good chance to test the lessons with the professor in practice. The headman adds that John has already appointed teams of 4 students. On their team, she's with Hunt, Sam, and Hannah. That his problems should not frighten them. A couple of days later, it's raining. Professor G is working out on the exercise machine. An assistant comes in and reports an emergency. She just received data on Team A. They found the target, but one of the team members died on the way to it. A few days ago, Professor G announced the start of group projects. The task was to find bottles of jungle juice outside the campus and bring them to the university. The goal is to bring back what led to hybridization with insects. The pesticide appeared out of nowhere with a quiet advertising campaign, but it acquired a large consumer base. It was bought both for residential premises and by tourists. There were also challenges with spraying on different creatures to test its effectiveness. The manufacturing company was not identified. Distribution was by the company Natural Life, which went bankrupt after the product was introduced to the market. The company was from Gangwon-do, so the damage was mostly in that area and the surrounding counties. Hunt realizes that he was able to hide everything because the disaster did not happen throughout the entire country. It is important to obtain more jungle juice for the production of Cinderella, so search and reconnaissance operations are constantly being carried out. This week, students must survey the contaminated area. The team that finds at least 1 bottle gets the highest score. Students are raising a fuss that they only found a couple of jars last semester. The product is no longer sold and is extremely difficult to find. Hunt's team splits into 2 groups, he and Gina and Sam and Hannah. Hunter is jubilant in his opinion. They have an A+ in their pocket. The boy kept the bottle he had used as a schoolboy at home just in case. Opening the door, he sees complete chaos in the apartment. Hunt first rushes to the place where the bottle is kept, but he is not there. The girl rejects the offer to look for him at her home. Gina suggests just looking in the city. An internet search yields nothing. The product is also not available in stores. Gina categorically stops Hunt's attempt to cheat. Hunt laments he did not expect such complexity. Gina reassures the spray is always difficult to find, so Cinderella is difficult to produce. But he has to get back before curfew. Hunt wonders who stole the jar from his house. Gina wonders if Hunt is so fixated on getting rid of his wings because of the girlfriend he saved at the movie theater. Hunt choked, but he explained that Hillary was not his girlfriend. He just wanted her back and his normal life at college. Hillary pushed him away and called him a monster, but that was because the mantis almost killed her. So she was afraid of the other hybrid, too. He thinks insect people look disgusting. Gina disagrees, calling him a strong man. Hunter thanks Gina for coming for him. Thanks to her, the guy found a goal, but the words spoken out loud seem somehow absurd. But Gina clarifies that the guy is glad that he decided to go with her. Hunt adds that she has been a class monitor since her first term, has worked hard for it, and also wants to return to normal life. She needs to overtake her first. But strangely enough, Gina doesn't want to come back. Hunt can't believe his ears. But then his phone rings. Sam yells that they found the jackpot, an old natural life warehouse. There should be enough raw material for 2,000 doses of Cinderella. Sam will send the address and ask them to hurry. At this point, the connection is cut off. Hunt tries to call back, but the subscriber is out of coverage. Gina screams, "We need to get there quickly." She explains that the mission was to find the sold bottles. Nest had already tried unsuccessfully to find the unsold ones, so suddenly finding a whole warehouse is more than strange. This luck looks too much like a trap. The place seems creepy, and it's not clear how they managed to find it. Hunt has an unpleasant feeling. Inside, the hangar is all dusty. It seems abandoned for a long time. Gina hurries to look for the others. Hunt doubts who would want to create such a realistic trap. He kicks the box. Inside the box, everything really is like a fairy tale jackpot. Hunt's jubilation is interrupted by the fall of Gina's body. The girl lies in a pool of blood, and a hybrid with a creepy claw stands over her and declares that he has found his prey. Gina doesn't move. Hunter rushes towards the villain. As a child, Hunt's grandfather told him that the baby said goodbye to his parents shortly after birth. But he never got used to saying goodbye, because it's simply impossible. The killer consoles him by saying that the boy will soon join his girlfriend. It is a hybrid of a dry roller that grabs its victims with powerful forceps on its body. Hunter is not at all happy with this arrangement. The guy punched the hybrid in the jaw, but he didn't give a damn. Hunt guesses that it is an exoskeleton. The praying mantis spoke about this, that after absorption, that is, devouring other insect people, the body becomes harder. The hybrid is surprised that the guy hasn't swallowed anyone yet, even though he has a dragonfly complex. The dry roller tells us that carnivorous insects can coexist with each other. At the same time, there is an amazing sensation, as if a drug had been added to the meat. After one bite, addiction immediately occurs. Thus, the dry roller realized that the more he eats other hybrids, the stronger he becomes. Before, he was just a small office worker. Now nothing limits him. He can become truly strong. With the powers of an insect, one can destroy social foundations and rise above weak people. Drywiggle was told that if he hid here in the fake warehouse, he would get free food. And so it happened. He will eat 2 students so that no one will find the bodies. Hunt clarifies that Gina was killed because the hybrid wanted to gain a certain kind of power. Rage gives the guy strength, and he unclenches his forceps. He pounces on the killer, who manages to grab him by the leg. The dry roller is on another level. A simple hybrid cannot compare with it. But Hunter doesn't care at all about the level of the killer. He intends to kill the one who took Gina. Dry Twist even felt the elbow strike to his jaw. The guy remembers the technique he studied with the professor at night. But suddenly his wings stop moving. Hunter doesn't understand what's going on. He remembers the professor mentioning side effects. But the moment is most inopportune. The forceps are almost closing around Hunt's throat. But at the last moment, Gina deflects the hybrid's claw. The guy is in shock. He doesn't understand how she was able to heal from such a terrible wound. Drywiggle is annoyed that the girl did not die, and I intend to fix everything immediately. Hunt yells at her to duck. Gina recalls that Hunt once asked her what her complex was, so now she will show everything. Hunter will see for himself what powers the girl has. A narrow alley where sunlight barely reaches. A group of high school students snort at the sight of 17-year-old Gina walking out of her building. They call the girl a cockroach, because Gina didn't go down the stairs. On the contrary, she rose up like a beggar from the basement. Her classmates filmed her on their phones, wondering how she lived in such conditions. Hatred of poverty began with pity and turned into discrimination. The girl was called a dirty parasite cockroach. A classmate saved the photo in the disgust folder. True, the classmate immediately received a kick from his older brother, who said that out of habit he crushes bugs when he sees them, and he introduced himself as an exterminator. My brother really hated bugs. Whenever Gina came home from school and saw even one cockroach, her brother would jump out of bed with a can of spray. That time the bottle was finished. The sprays often ran out because there were a lot of bugs. My brother came across an advertisement for jungle juice, which promised to pay if a bug didn't die after one spray. Gina lived with her brother in a 33-square-meter basement. Her brother suffered from piecework and constantly worked overtime so that she could study. He felt obligated to send his sister to college. But the brother died from overwork. Gina believed that poverty killed her brother, and the light literally went out in her window. It was at this moment that her classmates decided to take revenge on the girl. One of them brought a box of cockroaches because Gina's brother broke her boyfriend's face, and saying that they had brought her friends to have fun, they shook the cockroaches out the window. It was a living nightmare come true. The classmates immediately ran away, but Gina had nowhere to run. A bottle of jungle juice fell into her hands. He was her only defense against the encroaching sea of cockroaches. And the girl used the spray. Gina asks where the dry roller put their two friends. And the mess begins. Hunt doesn't even dare approach. Gina comes back. The guy asks if she is okay, seeing that her hand is injured. Gina quickly heals, but does not have time to answer who she is. A dry roller flies up from behind and screams that it is a cockroach. The girl's speed and vitality indicate this. The dry wiggler wonders where Gina encountered the cockroaches. In the garbage dump, in the sewer, or in the dirty basement. The hybrid mentioned the basement to his own detriment. Hunter's body still doesn't obey him, and the dry roller pesters Gina, supposedly smelling the smell of destruction from her. But no matter how hard he tries, he can't hit the nimble girl. Then the dry roller decides to change tactics and targets Hunt. Gina rushes headlong to intercept. Hunt yells at her to stay away. But the girl covers Hunter with herself. He watches in horror as her body hangs limply. Hunt can't believe what happened. The dry roller asks not to be upset, saying that the poor never live long in this harsh life. But looking at Hunter, the hybrid becomes wary. It's as if a demon of vengeance has taken possession of the guy. The hybrid doesn't understand what's happening. The dragonfly's wings are shining. The dry wiggle decides that the guy changed when the cockroach girl died. Therefore, besides absorption, there are other ways to become stronger. The hybrid is delighted and plans to devour Hunt in his current state, and he anticipates the powers he will receive by extending his claw. But the guy himself jumps up to him and calmly holds the forceps with one hand. Jungle juice turns people into powerful monsters with human intelligence and rationality. But apart from the animal instincts of kill or be killed, absolutely nothing human comes from the guy. With one hand, he forces the hybrid face down on the floor. He rejoices, saying that he should have kept an eye on the rear. The dragonfly is not just a winged hunter with compound eyes, but also with a highly organized chewing apparatus. It grinds up its prey. And right before the eyes of the astonished hybrid, Hunt's mandibles appear. The dry twist does not understand what kind of power this is. The professor was not only practical, but also theoretical. Human behavior is controlled by rationality, which restrains primitive instincts. It is necessary to destroy the balance and release the animal impulses. Those who have the power of the complex can master even greater power. It's called an insect stand, but the stand is hard to use. If you allow your instincts to take over completely, the complex will simply swallow up its owner entirely. Until today, the dry roller has been devouring its victims. But today the target is chosen incorrectly. Despite the colossal gap between the two species, the guy simply tears the hybrid into small pieces. The dry twist screams that he is sorry and asks him to stop. Hunter is completely deaf to requests. The hybrid begs not to kill him. At this point, someone in a transparent helmet intervenes, with a strange thing in his hands. This someone does not want to let the victim be eaten by a hunting dog. The stranger laments that the dry roller was given hunting grounds to raise and take in, but he became useless. Surprisingly, however, a special case was discovered in the process, just like with Gali Shin. And the special guy is also Nesta's student. Someone wants to get this guy. But Nest's bloodhounds are already approaching, and there is no time to mess with them. Hunter begins to regain consciousness, and he sees a stranger in a helmet in front of him, who hopes that by their next meeting the guy will have turned into an even bigger monster. University staff discover a hangar from which a mobile signal from curfew violators is emanating. With a bad feeling, the bloodhounds hesitate to enter, seeing a suspicious sign like natural life. Then Hunt comes out with Gina's body in his arms and asks for help. The girl is not breathing. In the pouring rain, the staff meet Group A at the entrance to the nest. Hunter carries Gina's body in his arms. The staff urgently calls for doctors. John asks what happened. Hunt explains that they went to get the spray from an abandoned warehouse, where a hybrid was waiting for them. The professor, in a rage, accidentally destroys the stretcher. All he needed to do was find some insect spray. John screams, "How did this simple task lead to a fatal outcome?" The doctor appears and immediately besieges Professor G, calling him a stinking old bug. This is Professor Ivana from the Faculty of Insect Advantages, and she is outraged that the stretcher is also broken. John asks why she came. Ivana explains that she shows up wherever there are patients. The professor takes off his glove and bends over Gina's body. A glow emanates from her hands. Hunt yells in confusion at what she's doing. The guy doesn't understand what's going on. The assistant holding the umbrella explains that the professor has a very special complex. What is happening now is part of the treatment. Ivana's complex is partly a parasitic fungus, cordyceps, an insect symbiote, and partly a firefly. Cordyceps sinensis has not yet been fully studied, but is known for its healing properties and ability to give the wearer energy. According to the assistant, Ivana has perhaps the most useful but mysterious complex in the university. Before our eyes, the wounds on Gina's body completely heal. Hunter wonders if the girl will survive. After a pause, Ivana explains that her complex heals wounds. But the student's heart, alas, stopped. But the professor is not capable of resurrection. The doctors ask to bring the body inside. But Hunter can't let Gina go. He brushes off the assistants. He hugs the girl with all his might. In Gina's memories, after another chase for a bug, her brother tells her that in the hardest life there are beautiful moments, like flowers. And he has such flowers every day because he has a beloved little sister, who, in his opinion, should stop thinking that she is unhappy and learn to appreciate the flowers of life. And her brother will trample all the bugs in her path. The brother asks them to continue fighting despite their poverty. At that moment, Hunter feels Gina's hand squeeze back. The professors are shocked. A metamorphosis, or more simply put, a molt, occurs. Every insect has this stage to shed damaged or old exoskeleton and continue growing. It may look unpleasant from the outside, but for an insect, the moment of shedding the old shell is wonderful. And Gina, in the process of metamorphosis, takes on the stance of a cockroach. The girl tries to open her eyes. It seems to her that her beloved brother is nearby, but she does not see him clearly in reality yet. In his memories, his brother had just caught the ill-fated beetle. Her vision clears and she realizes that it is not her brother in front of her, but Hunter. And Gina immediately remembers that Hunt had just held him in his arms, and Hunter can't hold back his tears of relief. Professors and assistants are running towards them from all sides. The guy is patched up and also placed in a ward at the University Medical Center. Sam and Hannah come to him. Hunter asks where they were because he and Gina did not find them. Sam is sure that they entered different hangars of the warehouse complex. He and Hannah search the dusty room. Then there was a loud crash and all the shelves and racks fell on them. So it took them several hours to get out of the rubble. Hunter reports that Gina is currently in the lab being checked for her health. Now everyone will have to write explanatory notes about breaking the curfew. And it's a shame that all the jungle juice in the warehouse was counterfeit. Hunter wonders how the guys even discovered an abandoned warehouse deep in the mountains. They were asking people on the street, and some guy with an unusual style gave them this tip. That guy had weird white hair with a light pink tint. And on the stranger's ear there was an unusual, memorable piercing with a spider and a web. The stranger, described by Sam, is met in the laboratory by a dog wagging its tail. The lab assistant is surprised that the blonde guy hasn't choked yet with that thing on his head. He chuckles, saying he's surprised himself. The lab assistant finds out that the dragonfly guy turned the dry roller into mincemeat. The stranger is amazed at how lucky the university is with talented students. The stranger shakes water out of his hair. The lab technician calls the stranger the breeder and notes that he clearly wants to bring someone here. The breeder confirms the lab assistant's guess. He orders to contact 2 students sent to Nest who were lent to Galia Shin. The lab assistant reports that Galia probably killed their water beetle. The breeder is not very upset and asks what happened to the second student. But their second planted Cossack is well camouflaged among the newcomers. In this case, the breeder suggests having some fun. Team A continued searching for jungle juice in full force, but found nothing before the mission's end date. Hunter is sweating profusely when the professor announces their group's 0 result in the classroom. Out of the entire freshman class, not a single group found anything. Students are outraged that it is impossible to get something that has not even been available on the internet for a long time. Professor G reports that this outcome of the group project was expected. John explains that the assignment was meant to show students how much work it takes to find even a can of repellent. What the teams encountered on the mission is the same as what the university encounters when searching. Only a couple of vials have been found this year, because of the hunt for jungle juice. Besides Nest, there is another organization of hybrids. Little is known about this group at this time, but it is absolutely certain that they act as terrorists. making hybrids out of ordinary people. They deliberately use dangerous insects that are banned from pet stores from endangered species in Korea and other countries, smuggling them in. They prefer invasive insect species that invade any new territory. Many of the nest's inhabitants are among their victims. Terrorists transform into hybrids against their will and without apparent reason. Until now, the group's activities have hardly affected Nest. They prefer to keep a low profile. But in this case, they created a trap specifically for Nest. So now everything will be completely different from the first semester. This time, everyone will receive a serious and extremely important task. Therefore, the professor suggests that those who wish to do so should immediately drop the course and leave the classroom. Because the level of danger is unprecedented, it is a life-or-death battle. You can get hurt, as happened on the last mission. Even death is possible, as in the case of a praying mantis escaping. The professor asks only those who are not afraid of dying to stay. There was silence in the audience. The students are puzzled, but everyone remains in their seats. Here Hunter comes up with a question about whether the upcoming battle with the hostile group will affect their rating. Hunt waits for an answer and all the students look at him. The professor explains that in such a risky situation, the course will be highly valued and will greatly help in the ranking of graduates. Hunter was sure he was out of the running for leadership when he failed to get into Professor Mudd's course. But now he looks forward with optimism because no risk, no champagne. Sam notices that even after almost being in the next world, the guy does not give up his dream of becoming the best graduate. At first, Sam thought it was too much for him when he learned about the death of the bee and the diving beetle, but now I am confident that I am ready to fight those who cross the line. Hannah is just so excited about the upcoming real fight. The students don't want to lose to the new guy, and some want a chance at Cinderella. The head boy understands that all new students are warned of the dangers every semester. True, previously, they only warned about the possibility of getting injured, not dying. Professor G is pleasantly surprised because usually most people give up just after hearing that they can get injured. But in this group, no one retreated even under threat of death. John announces that special lectures will begin next week, which will not be held every day. The professor clarifies that the start of semester party will be today. Hunter is at a party devouring the treats. He is surprised to see that in Nesta it is no different from ordinary student parties. The guy even finds the most ordinary behavior of his classmates strange. Sam screams for Hunt to help him. Hannah gets bored and amuses herself by hitting Sam, and during the breaks he demands more drinks. Hunter notes that not everyone can tolerate Hannah every day. He asks if Sam is willing to take a daily bite. Sam explains that this is Hannah's way of showing friendliness, because before she hardly communicated with anyone, so it's difficult for her to show affection. Hunter had no idea about the real reason for the Scorpio girl's behavior. He notices that some guy is talking to Hannah. It's Jun Lee from the Insect Advantage course, who specializes in understanding Nest's defenses, who invites Hannah to go for a drink. Hunt doesn't know who it is. Gina thinks it's someone she knows from the lab. At first, Hannah looks surprised and wary, but he jumps up cheerfully and grabs the guy by the arm, offering to teach him the way of beer. They both go out, no fights. Hunter teases Sam about showing affection, who tells the guy to shut up. But Hunt has never seen Hannah act so peacefully. He wonders who that guy is. And before leaving, Jun Lee glances at Hunter, who doesn't understand what that means. Outside the university, June is glad that he was not discovered and caught. Hannah, passed out from alcohol, sleeps tied up. June remarks that it would be better if she never woke up. The kidnapper extends his hand towards Hannah. But Hunter intercepts his hand and asks what's going on. And face to face, he repeats his question to the stranger once again. The lab assistant asks who the breeder intends to take from the university. He adds that if the guy is a dragonfly, then flying insects are more difficult to train. The breeder believes that the guy is promising but not ready yet. This time he is targeting a Scorpio girl. They've been watching her for a long time. Meanwhile, the party at the university continues as usual. Hunter asks who the stranger is and what he did to Hannah. He finds out that the kidnapper is not Hannah's boyfriend. Hunter believes that in such a case, trying to take advantage of a girl you're not dating is practically a crime. Hunt tries to wake Hannah, but the stranger touches his shoulder and tells him to get out of the way. After the warning, he takes off his jacket and black feathers fly in all directions. The guy doesn't understand what kind of feathers these are. When touching the skin, the strange feathers hurt it. The stranger advises to be more careful, because it is not feathers that fly away, but the poisonous bristles of the tarantula spider. He will take Hannah away because there is no place for her at the university, and she won't come back again. Hunter clarifies that the stranger is not a student at Nest University. Instead of answering, the tarantula attacks the guy. Hunter remembers using too much power in the warehouse and experiencing a side effect. But at the moment, the guy has fully recovered. Hunt decides to keep his distance and at the first opportunity grab Hannah and escape. But the tarantula believes that the boy should have listened to his advice when he gave him a chance. He assumes a tarantula stance and prepares to deliver a targeted blow. Poisonous bristles fly towards Hunt like hail. The guy is surprised that the stranger can attack like that, and he understands that there are too many bristles. He can't dodge them all. So it's better to go back to university for help. But the tarantula doesn't allow him to leave. Who says that he will have to take Hunter with him, which he suspected. Gina begins to worry about where Hunt is taking so long. She wanted to ask him what happened in the warehouse, but she never had enough time to catch the guy himself. Then a rather drunk Sam approaches her and asks her to call Hannah, with whom Gina shares a dorm room. Sam is worried that he hasn't seen Hannah for an hour. Gina saw that her neighbor went outside with some guy. At the same time, Hunter and June continue to measure their strength. To his surprise, the guy sees that the tarantula is practically keeping up with him. Hunter is about to fly higher, but then the rain of bristles starts again. An air escape route is excluded. The guy feels like the tarantula is trying to trap him. Hunter tries unsuccessfully to wake up the sleeping scorpion. June notices that Hunter is the one acting like Hannah's boyfriend, and he adds that Hannah is from their group, and without her they will not be able to complete the task. But Hunter loves student life at Nest and doesn't want to leave, so he must defeat the tarantula. He recalls the professor's words that only rationality restrains primitive instincts in people. He must let go of his animal instincts. With this thought, he strikes. Hunter manages to put a lot of force into his punch, but I can't enjoy contemplating the result. Everything is blurry before my eyes. The guy falls to the ground. June explains that the dose of poison is not lethal. He is forbidden to kill the guy. Hunter realizes that the tarantula attacked the moment he took the blow, but the guy didn't even notice anything. June is impressed that the dragonfly managed to injure his arm. The tarantula thinks that Hunt's complex is not bad, but it doesn't come close to his own. With these words, the guy finally loses consciousness. Hunter comes to his senses on an unfamiliar bed. He doesn't understand where he is, except that he's clearly indoors. To top it all off, Hannah is lying nearby. Hunter is completely at a loss as to what happened. Here the Scorpio girl opens her eyes. A silent scene follows. In the finale, Hunter predictably gets into trouble even though he didn't do anything. In addition, the phone died and turned off, the window and door were closed, and the guy's clothes were missing. But what upsets Hunter most is that they not only broke curfew again, but also skipped classes today. That means the chances of being the best student are melting away like smoke. Meanwhile, Hannah convinces herself that June wouldn't behave like that. Here the students simultaneously hear someone approaching the door. It opens and a charming little girl appears on the threshold, asked to announce that breakfast is served. The boys look at the child in bewilderment, and they go out into the dining room where a crowd of toddlers are wolfing down an appetizing breakfast. Hunter can't imagine where they are, but Hannah immediately recognizes the Angel Orphanage, because she herself grew up here, and he adds that it is just a small orphanage in a rural area. The girl who called them looks at the scorpion's tail in surprise. She is joined by other young spectators who are curious if the thing is real because the tail looks lifelike. But Hannah disappoints them that the tail is a toy. The children believe it, but continue to look at it and touch it with delight. The girl boils before our eyes like a kettle, and the children move from looking at her to feeling her tail. Hannah's patience runs out and she simply runs out to avoid taking it out on the children. A smiling, middle-aged woman, the director of the orphanage, comes out to Hunter and thinks that the guy is a friend of Hannah and June. The guy thanks his clothes for being washed. The director says that June brought them last night. He is a pupil of this orphanage, so she could not kick them out. Now it's clear what Hannah and the tarantula have in common, since they are from the same orphanage. But June left, asking to look after them. The director asks how Hannah is doing and clarifies that the girl is not being bullied. She's so worried because Hannah was a very sensitive crybaby as a child. Hunt's eyebrows rise in surprise. The director was very surprised when Hannah suddenly grew a tail. The girl remembers how, as a child, she asked permission to leave the orphanage for a short while with her backpack. She went to visit her father, who was deprived of parental rights allegedly only for slapping his daughter. He demanded that the girl inform the orphanage that her father had returned, and he hovered over the frightened child, asking if she was going to call the police again. and then he swung his arm and chased her away to the orphanage so that she would leave before he hit her. Hannah feels like the orphanage only brings back bad memories for her. The director notes that it is time for the children to return to the university. Their clothes should be dry by now. Then the little girl who came to see them in the morning comes up to the guy and asks him to draw with her. The director explains with a smile that Rima is not indifferent to cute boys. Hunt assures that he can play with the girl before leaving. Hunter draws and thinks that for Hannah, being here is like coming home since she is in no hurry to return. Rima draws a girl with butterfly wings and explains that it is a morpho butterfly. She dreams of getting beautiful butterfly wings. Hunt explains that wings can be frightening to other people, and not everyone likes insects. Rima understands what we are talking about. She herself doesn't like mosquitoes, which are plentiful in the mountains. Besides butterflies, the girl likes dragonflies. They are her heroes because one dragonfly eats more than 200 mosquitoes a day. A worker comes in and asks Rima to get ready. Today is her last day. The girl explains that tomorrow she will be living in another orphanage, so she is a little sad but very interested. She hands Hunter a book of her drawings. The worker takes the girl away. The guy feels relieved after talking to the girl. It's time to bring Hannah back to the university. In the dark corridor, the director clarifies that Rima is ready for transportation and is waiting in the room. The girl lies on a hospital bed in a strange room where everyone is wearing lab suits. The director is informed that the anesthesia has already taken effect. The worker assures that everything is fine. This is not their first day on the job. This time they sent a creepy black giant African centipede. The director asks to handle the insect more carefully. They will lose funding if the result is defective. They are interrupted by a knock on the door. This is Hunt, who supposedly got lost while looking for a toilet. The director finds this strange since they are on the second basement level in a restricted area. The guy understands this himself. He breaks into the room, kicking down the door. In fact, he was already about to leave when he noticed something in Rima's album. The picture showed jungle juice in the hand of a smiling teacher. Hunter immediately remembers the director's words that one day Hannah got a tail, and she was supposedly very surprised. The guy respects older people, but this does not apply to parasites like the director. About 10 minutes ago, when Rima was taken away, Hunter was looking at her drawings and came across an incredible image. It's impossible to imagine something like that. He saw which door the girl entered with the worker. A kid running past shouts that there are stairs to the basement and the teachers forbid him to go down there. Hunter doesn't understand why there is a forbidden basement in the orphanage. He decides to check what's there. The boy shouts after him that the adults will be angry. June watches what is happening behind his back. The employees are surprised that Hunter was able to locate the room using only the drawing, because the underground rooms were designed to be cut off from the first floor. So the guy eliminated the security. They don't understand why June brought Hunter, who would have lived peacefully if he had simply left the orphanage. The workers' attack fails. The director is surprised at how strong the guy is. Hunter wonders how many children were tortured here. And do the workers understand what kind of suffering the children will have to endure? But the employees silently attack instead of responding. Hunter doesn't understand what happened. The director says that the guy can't handle everything on his own. The room's dimensions limit Hunt's maneuverability. Meanwhile, one of the hybrids carries the sleeping baby away. The director needs to complete the operation despite the guy's interference. She believes June wanted to convince Hunt, but it seems wiser to her to simply kill him. Hannah is sat on the bed. June enters with a bag of clothes. Then they both feel a vibration from the basement. Hannah wonders if she is in her own orphanage. June explains that there is a laboratory under the building where children are turned into hybrids. Hannah is furious and attacks June, not understanding what he is talking about. The tarantula asks if the girl remembers who she was before she became half-scorpion. June followed Hannah around and saw her being abused by her father. In front of his eyes, the little girl only cried and asked for forgiveness. She couldn't defend herself. June really wanted to help and was ready to kill the one who offended Hannah. But even if he had helped at that moment, it would not have solved the problem. Hannah had to change herself in order to cope on her own. The girl only now understands how she became a hybrid. June thinks it happened for the best. The girl became stronger after jungle juice, both externally and internally. And the next time she intercepted her father's hand raised to strike, she became half animal but was able to fight back. So Hannah threw off the shackles and healed her emotional wounds. June thinks that the other orphans are no worse. They were abandoned by their parents and have no prospects in adult life. Jungle juice gives them a fresh start. June asks to imagine a world where you don't have to hide your scorpion tail because everyone around you is a hybrid, just like Hannah. And the tarantula works for the one who can make this dream come true and change the world. June asks to put aside thoughts of Cinderella and university because simple Hannah has no answer to the ruling elite. He offers to join him in creating a new world where there will be no victims. He asks if the girl will stay with him because they are friends. Hannah agrees that they are friends and immediately hits June. It is as a friend that she will not let him ruin his own life, even if she has to beat up the tarantula. She's going to bring him back to reality and knock the nonsense out of his head. Hunter sees traces of blood sucking on his hands. He realizes that all the employees are mosquitoes. Moreover, Asian tiger mosquitoes are aggressive and huge. That is, a few more bites threaten death from blood loss. The director advises to simply give up because they will not allow the delivery of a valuable product to the breeder to be disrupted. The girl is already in another room. Hunter can't do anything. The guy remembers Rima's words about dragonflies eating more than 200 mosquitoes a day. That is, he is the natural enemy of the orphanage staff. Hunt must become a hero for Rima. At that very moment, mosquitoes feel like victims and involuntarily experience a primal fear. Hunter understands that he needs to save Rima as soon as possible before something bad happens to the baby. The mosquitoes are threatening. He will only leave over their corpses. But they can't compete with a dragonfly in speed. The only thing that holds the guy back is the lack of glasses. The wind makes his eyes water. The conflict between childhood friends flies out of the window into the courtyard of the orphanage. Jun didn't want it to turn out this way. The tarantula understood that Hannah was unlikely to dance to his tune right away, but he did not want to use his power on her. June uses the tarantula's ultimate defense mechanism and performs a stinging throw. The bristles fly like an avalanche. But the tarantula's tricks are completely ineffective on Hannah. June realizes that her exoskeleton cannot be penetrated with bristles and decides to act more roughly. And again he miscalculates. Hannah urges him to wake up from his sleep and return to reality, knocking him down. The girl is very pleased with herself because she treats June gently and in a friendly manner. Hannah notices that the baby is already being taken away by a shelter employee. Without thinking, she rushes after them and yells at the bastards to stop. The car winds along the mountain road. The worker is glad to have gotten away and is sure that even Hannah is not capable of catching up with the car. She plans to stop in a quiet place and finish the process. Suddenly, Hannah jumps out onto the road in front of the car. The girl is clearly not in the mood to give in and takes a position right in the middle of the track. She just lifts the car in her arms. At the same time, she states that she was forced to use her powers. The girl throws the car onto its side. Hannah adds that the bastard should thank the baby, otherwise there would be nothing left of the car. Then June appears, surprised that his friend caught up with the car. Hannah tells him to shut up. The girl offers the tarantula to surrender. He can't help but understand that the complex is useless against a Scorpio girl. June agrees that his stubble is like a feather tickle to a girl, but the same can't be said for the children at the orphanage. Hannah even opens her mouth in surprise. And his childhood friend is going to prove that abilities like his are much better than no abilities at all, and there is one ability he has never shown. Therefore, he removes the plasters from his face and asks the girl to watch carefully what the children will have to go through. Hannah just can't believe her eyes, because June, who I've known since childhood, uses the defense mechanism of a tarantula plus a black mamba. Once the victim sees the fangs, they are doomed. Even Hannah cannot dodge the blow. June reassures the girl, who is losing consciousness, that the poison is a small dose, but she needs to relax and sleep. A tarantula jumps onto a car. The baby is still sleeping, but the anesthesia is practically no longer effective. June extends her hand to the girl, saying that it's all over now. At this moment, Rima opens her eyes, and Hunter appears and knocks the tarantula off the car. June didn't think the guy could handle the entire staff. It turns out that even a crowd can't overwhelm a natural enemy. The tarantula notes that both know the outcome of the fight, since Hunt will not be able to approach him due to the poisonous bristles. Hunter agrees that's exactly what happened the first time. But while fighting mosquitoes, the guy got hold of protective glasses in the room. So this time the situation will be different. June brought the guy along with Hannah because he decided to invite him to join them. He couldn't afford to leave a witness anyway. However, now the tarantula is forced to simply kill the guy. Hunter sees that the enemy is attacking. Jun uses a stinging throw, but Hunter simply steps aside from the stream of bristles. Some bristles still touch the skin, which immediately begins to burn, as if from a burn. And a satisfied June declares that the guy is not immune to his poison. That is, he is not able to pass through the barrier of bristles. This means that it won't be able to touch the enemy either. But June doesn't have time to finish speaking because Hunter's fist hits him in the face. The impact is noticeable because the tarantula is thrown back. He doesn't understand how this can happen. Hunter claims that the tarantula can spread its bristles as much as it wants. It will be able to find a way and get the enemy. June growls in anger. But Hunter got hold of glasses, and his eyes are protected from dust and wind, which means there are no speed limits. That is, the game begins by different rules. Nothing can hold the guy back now. An angry June turns on the tarantula's defense mechanism and connects the black mamba to it. Hunter barely manages to push the attacker away with his foot. The guy is shocked because June approached almost instantly. Probably he knocked him out with these fangs. The tarantula states that the boy has no idea what he's gotten himself into. But June has a mission to complete, and he shouldn't stand in his way. How worthless life can be when a little boy sees his mother on his lap. Mom was in poor health. She gave birth to a son early, and she barely had enough to live on. She was forced to borrow money, which they demanded to be returned. The creditors ignored her pleas to wait until she paid her hospital bills and forced her to sell her body to earn money. The baby couldn't hold back and rushed at his mother's offender, but they simply took him out into the street because the weak are always taken advantage of. And they said that Mom would be working today. If the boy had been strong, he would have saved his mother. If only he had received his powers a little earlier. Then the boy would have had a happy family. Therefore, June is convinced that not having the strength to live is tragic for both Hannah and all children in orphanages. And the tarantula intends to save them and make them happy. It uses the defense mechanism of a tarantula combined with a hydra. A stunned Hunter looks at the wild number of snakeheads. The guy understands that he can't escape from so many at once, so he needs to take cover. But instead, he covers the sleeping Hannah with his body. June calls him a fool. The girl is immune to his poison. Otherwise, he would never have attacked. But Hunter's heroism will now lead him to his grave. Hunter claims that everything June said was a lie, because he was the one who put everyone in danger. Rima finally woke up from the anesthesia, climbed out of the overturned car, and hugged Hannah with all her might. She was able to get out of the mangled car herself. And she wasn't afraid to go out and hug Hannah under a hail of stubble. The baby is not weak at all and does not need a complex. June throws the mamba into the attack. Hunter states that the tarantula can try as much as he wants, but he will never be faster than the guy. June screams that Hunter will never be able to defeat him, but the guy dodges the tarantula's sneak attack. June can't believe her eyes because it was impossible to foresee his attack. However, the dragonfly is capable of flying at speeds of almost 100 kilometers per hour. Moreover, the insect maneuvers without slowing down, so its victim simply has no opportunity to retreat. And the vaunted defense mechanism of the tarantula is perceived by the dragonfly as hunting a hare. At the same time, the enemy is not even able to discern the movements of the dragonfly. Hunter states that the only weak one here is the tarantula itself. With another blow, the guy knocks Jun off his feet. He remains lying there like a knocked-out boxer. Hunt knows he has won. Hunter walks up to the baby, who is still sitting next to Hannah's sleeping body, with her eyes wide open and her mouth open. The guy asks if the girl is hurt, but she continues to stare with wide eyes. Hunter decides that the baby is afraid of wings. A child may think that there is a monster in front of him. He apologizes, didn't want to scare the baby, and decides to just leave and tell Nest what happened. But the little girl pulls him by the jacket from behind. Rima babbles that the guy has a wound on his back. Hunter explains that they have a super doctor who will cure him quickly. Rima has tears in her eyes and thanks Mr. Dragonfly for saving her. The girl is scared and thinks that her hero can't speak because of pain. But Hunter is simply melting. He is sure that Nesta will be able to take care of Rima. There are obviously special programs there, but Hannah needs to be woken up. The guy turns to the mangled car, but there is no one near it. Hannah was here a second ago, but she just disappeared. The guy doesn't understand what's going on, but he feels someone's presence. There is a stranger behind, possibly Jun's comrade, which suddenly just disappears. Hunter had never encountered such a complex before. A voice from nowhere announces that the tarantula has lost and is lying there like a pathetic little bug. June recognizes the voice of the carrier, who works for the breeder. The breeder was sure that June would not convince anyone, so he sent his carrier to pick up Hannah. The breeder wants to put the girl through training feeding today. June counters that he hasn't lost yet and can persuade Hana to join voluntarily. The tarantula asks to let Hana go. Jun then aggressively demands the girl back and takes a fighting stance. The carrier notes that Jun's foolish attachment clouds his judgment, and this has always infuriated the breeder. And no one will keep a useless dog. The carrier simply disappears, and the poisonous bristles fly into empty space. June understands that she needs to send after them immediately. But the tarantula has practically no strength for this. June knows that Hunter also wants to save Hana, so she offers to show him the way on the condition that the guy takes him with him. Hunt asks if the tarantula knows where they are headed. June doesn't know, but he is able to track them. There is a glass pavilion in the forest. Hana wakes up tied to a chair. The breeder congratulates her on her awakening. When asked who he is, he explains that he is her longtime benefactor. He doesn't want to harm the girl. On the contrary, he offers to leave Nest in the past and join their group. Hana predictably responds with a rude refusal. The breeder explains to the carrier that the girl is so passionate because those who grow up in the wild are always more willful than those who are domesticated. The waiter standing behind serves trays of delicious burgers. The breeder suggests continuing the conversation after the meal. Hana is not hungry at all. The breeder assures that he did not put drugs in the food. He simply believes that all living things are driven by the feeling of hunger. For this reason, he loves dogs that want only tasty food in exchange for their unconditional devotion. He wonders if Hana won't even try the dish. She's not that hungry. The breeder regrets that the girl figured out his trick, because his people tried to prepare it as appetizingly as possible. Hana claims that they are just crazy. She categorically refuses to eat any nasty stuff, but the breeder is not interested in her desire. Here the girl's enthusiasm suddenly fades. She vaguely feels someone's hand on her face. Galya Shin greets the breeder, leaning against the girl. He thanks Galya for agreeing to help. Shin states that what the breeder wants to show her must be interesting so that he himself will survive. She wonders if she was invited just for food. The breeder explains that this food is for feeding. He wants to demonstrate how a carnivorous insect loses its mind by feeding. He called it training feeding. First he makes the animal addicted to meat, and then he uses it to break even the most stubborn ones, making them loyal servants. Galen's poison is short-acting, unlike his training. The breeder asks if Shin herself would like to try a piece. This way she can deal with everyone she hates in Nesta. Galya admits that there is a temptation. She tells the girl to eat. The breeder explains that his victims are conscious, but this means absolutely nothing, because after tasting just once, all insects are looked at equally. Just like steaks, something flies from the roof at lightning speed. The carrier is simply in shock. Galya is in undisguised bewilderment. The breeder cannot hide his surprise. Hunter wonders how they can track the nearly invisible carrier. June explains that he can't fly, so he walks. Since tarantulas are spiders, he wove his web throughout the forest around the orphanage. The carrier cannot be seen, but he will not hide his tracks. The breeder watches what is happening with curiosity. Hunter holds Hana. June stands next to him. The breeder finds this combination very interesting. The dragonfly's arrival came as a surprise to him. The breeder notes that the boys have already become friends. Hunter is surprised that the mysterious guy even knows about him. He remembers Sam describing the man who gave him a tip about the abandoned warehouse. The man sitting in front of him matches the description exactly. For some unknown reason, Galya Shin is also here. June explains that Hana has a poisonous stinger in her neck. The ampellicid wasp is capable of influencing the nervous system of insects with its poison. Hana is under the control of Galya Shin, and when the girl is forced to swallow the hybrid's meat, she will become their slave. Hunter remembers the dry roller saying that once you try it, you can't stop. The breeder prefers to call the procedure training feeding rather than enslavement. June is indignant because the blonde man promised that the orphanage children would retain control, but now he is going to enslave Hana. The tarantula demands an explanation, adopting a threatening stance. The breeder considered June a business partner, but it turns out the tarantula doesn't trust him, and he hasn't even shown his farm yet. He turns the tablet so June can see how the children at the orphanage are doing. The breeder explains that the children show little resistance to eating the meat of the hybrids, but they become stronger hunting dogs. The children thus received a new life, as June wished. The tarantula can't stand it and rushes to attack. At the same time, he shouts that the breeder is a vile deceiver. Gallia thinks that the tarantula is overreacting because all children behave like that and don't value their lives. Hunter looks at what is happening in horror. Hannah breaks free from the guy's hands and knocks out Juna's fang with her tail. June understands that the girl is controlled by Gallia Shin, but it is not clear where Hannah got such unreal strength from. Gallia explains with a smile that her complex affects the nervous system of insects. In addition to control and numbness, Gallia knows how to strengthen complexes. For most scorpion species, the tail is the main weapon, but for some species, it is simply an additional stroke. Emperor scorpions' main weapons are their massive body and dense exoskeleton. The powerful, huge claws of such scorpions easily pierce the exoskeleton of any beetle. Their dense shell is practically armor. Hannah, wild-eyed, assumes the Emperor Scorpion stance. June understands that nothing pleasant is in store for him now. His guess is completely confirmed. Satisfied, Gallia notes that she only slightly touched upon the girl's complex, but the result exceeded all expectations. Shin reports that the effects of her poison will begin to wear off in about 2 hours, so they have time to have some fun. A top of the food chain animal eager to chop up victims into tiny pieces is ready to provide the fun. Hunter reaches out to the girl and yells at her to stop, to no avail. Suddenly his hand becomes entangled in something. Silver threads come from the breeder, who orders the boy to stand. A moment later, Hunter is already chained to the spider's web, but he screams that he is not a dog. The breeder just wove it, and the net is perfect for dragonflies. He thinks it's better for the guy to stay inside the network for now. Hunter asks why the breeder is doing this. The guy tears the net with his teeth. Having escaped from the web, Hunt flies to the breeder, who demands to know why he is making hybrids out of children and feeding them the meat of his relatives. The blonde man doesn't answer and thinks how stupid it is for the dragonfly to fly straight at him. Hunter strikes. The breeder doesn't even have time to notice how it happened. Apparently, the guy takes into account past mistakes and speeds up. He asks if the dragonfly has any hope of surviving. Hunter is hunting the hare again, just as he did with the tarantula. The breeder just laughs that the guy is so aggressive. He enjoys taming such mad dogs. Suddenly, the sprinklers in the pavilion turn on. The dragonfly's wings get wet and it's very hard for the boy to fly. The breeder watches the boy's amazing speed with a chuckle. He believes that the dragonfly should also be caught, and she throws web threads onto the guy's neck and arm. The water spider is the only representative of its species in the world that lives in water. Hunter watches as the breeder assumes a water spider stance and uses the taming chain. The guy starts to suffocate inside the water helmet, and the breeder calmly explains that his skills are slightly different from simple water spiders because his web is capable of holding water. He can give these powers to Hunter too, because when the guy wakes up after drowning, he's in for a training feeding. Rima, wearing Nesta's student jacket, watches a dragonfly. Hunt puts his jacket on her and promises to come back for the girl with Hannah, so let the baby stay here and not go anywhere. The little girl asks the guy to save Hannah. Gina appears nearby and asks how the girl is feeling after the car accident and where she got her jacket. June tries to block the scorpion's attacks. Gallia Shin enjoys the wonderful crack of his breaking bones. Gallia wants to watch the beating a little longer, and the scorpion obediently attacks. A battered June feels like he's been run over by a train. He won't last much longer at this rate. Zombie Hannah monotonously carries out another attack. June realizes that the bones are now more like puzzles. The tarantula ejects bristles. The zombie rushes forward like a tank, not noticing them at all and not slowing down. The moment after the next blow, Jun manages to get a little closer to the girl. This is enough to sink the remaining fang. June even feels like Hannah recognizes her childhood friend after his bite. But she relentlessly strikes again. The breeder chuckles that the girl really is an imperial scorpion. He believes that Galli's poison is stronger against the backdrop of university training. Thus, Hannah can become one of his strongest insects. The breeder suggests that Jun give up and not destroy her body. After absorption, the girl will probably lose her humanity completely. But it doesn't matter, because they are going to change the whole world. And only the strongest will be able to survive in this new world, and ordinary people will disappear. A world without people would have no need for humanity. Jun didn't even have the strength to move in response, and Gallia sees it. She orders Hannah to eat the burger she prepared for her. Jun looks in horror at the girl he wanted to make happy and asks her not to worry. At least this food will make her happy. Hannah already has a piece of meat in her claw. Hunter yells through his helmet, "Stop talking nonsense, because hybrid meat will just turn you into a monster." What happiness can there be for a monster? and who will side with the monster. Hunter tries to break the threads. The guy understands that if Hannah becomes a monster, she will only be alone, and he shouts about it through his helmet. At these words, June remembers how the children whispered behind his back that his mother died of illness, and the boy himself was contagious, since he always had a bandage on his face, and only Hannah was not afraid to approach him. And she said that they are on the same team, because she also often wears bandages. June realizes that if it weren't for Hannah, he would have grown up completely alone. With his last strength, the tarantula tries to get up, and Galya laughs at his condition. June can't stand, but he's confident he can grow stubble. He must do everything to keep Hannah from being absorbed. Jun lands a well-aimed blow. The bristles fly clearly between the piece of meat and the girl's open mouth. Galya laughs that he missed and didn't knock a piece of meat out of the claw. The bristles dig into Hunter's water helmet. Because Jun wasn't aiming at a piece of meat at all, it's like lightning flies past the breeder. In a split second, Hunter manages to snatch a piece of meat from the scorpion's claw. June has used up the last of his strength, so he falls to the side and leaves everything to Hunter. The tarantula asks to save Hannah. Hunter flies up to the ceiling of the pavilion where the villains won't get him and the sprinklers won't wet his wings. The tireless breeder assures that it is not a problem to cook more meat, and at a height, the guy cannot hide from his web. Immediately, a multitude of threads rush upwards, plus a comment that the guy's skills are far from perfect. Hunter remembers how, on the eve of the chase, June said that his stance was fast, but it lacked strength, and it would not be enough against the breeder. Because this hybrid is on a completely different skill level. June might need the guy's help to get Hannah back. Then the tarantula told Hunter about a trick. The breeder wonders why the guy is suddenly stuck on the ceiling. Hunt thinks that there is nothing difficult to do. He just needs to put all his strength not into one fist, but into his whole body. And the guy is going to use the body as a bullet. He's heading down. The initial speed is increased by pushing off the ceiling and the wings are strengthened by the stand. Thus Hunt reaches the speed of sound. At this moment, the breeder feels like a game that a sniper is aiming at. Hunter uses the dragonfly stance hunting rifle. In theory, it seems not difficult, but in practice it is incredibly difficult to control your own body. It is impossible to maneuver or break. That is, the risk is huge. Everything must be resolved in one blow. The breeder would have gotten into real trouble if he hadn't managed to weave a net at the last moment. Hunter's technique is more suited to Professor Nest than to a new student. The breeder finds this situation very worrying. He assumes the stance of a water spider, and he activates the aquarium, which means he ends up with the guy in a huge water ball. Hunt doesn't understand how he suddenly ended up in the water and tries to get out. But the breeder declares that there is no way out of his underwater citadel, and the fate of the prisoner is entirely in his hands. Hunter feels like his breeder complex is literally draining his strength. The breeder announces that the boy has lost the battle and will soon lose consciousness. By the time Hunt comes to, Hannah will have already tasted the hybrid's flesh, and for a couple of students, a new life will begin, in which they will lose the remnants of humanity. Deep down, Hunt doesn't want to turn into a monster. Losing consciousness, he mentally begs for someone to help him. At this moment, the water citadel splashes in all directions. The breeder is surprised that his aquarium was destroyed with just one blow. Hunter spits out water as Gina's strong hand helps him up. She came to the rescue because drowning while having wings would be too stupid. Hunter wonders how the girl found this place. As soon as he and Hannah disappeared from the party, Gina immediately notified the professor, and university agents immediately went looking for them. It was difficult for them because the guy's phone was dead, but Professor Madhu managed to track him down. Hunt recalls that university security was supposed to keep an eye on Galya Shin. The agents kept watch, but the malicious wasp still did not approach the leader. The guards had already begun to suspect that Shin had discovered the tale, when suddenly she simply disappeared before their eyes, dissolving into thin air. It was the breeder who sent his carrier for her. The agent was about to report that he had missed the target when he suddenly noticed Hunter flying by. Then the little girl in Hunt's jacket told everything. The girl is fine. She's in nest. Then the mega scorpion Hannah attacks them. Gina is surprised, but the guy explains that Hannah is being controlled because of the poison that was injected. Galya greets the professor's little dog. Gina recognizes the girl who released the praying mantis. Galya does not deny her involvement. Gina asks Hannah for forgiveness. But she is forced to hit the scorpion so that it doesn't get underfoot. Galya assures that the blow is not too strong for Hannah. Here Hunter in turn tries to hit Gala, who jumps back, indignant that the fool does not allow the girls to chat. And immediately the breeder calls out to the guy, entangling his limbs with his threads. He states that their conversation is not over, and assumes the water spider stance to use puppet. But Gina doesn't allow her friend to be hung on strings like a puppet show. The guys understand that it will be difficult for them to cope with the breeder and Gallia. They are as strong as Professor G himself, perhaps even stronger than John. Gallia intends to take the girl on. The breeder does not object. Cockroaches do not interest him. Hunter is not at all confident of victory this time, so he suggests that Gina take Hannah and run away, and he will buy them time. Gina reminds the guy of his own words when the swimmer took his student cards. Hunter remembers what he told her that time. Gina didn't come alone either. Sam is already kicking the breeder's water helmet. And at the same time he yells that those freaks did something to his friends. Gallia sees the familiar guy again, and at the same moment golden threads entwine her. She realizes that these are silk threads, not a spider's web. But she can neither say nor do anything, being wrapped in a dense cocoon. A stunned Hunter sees that his quiet classmate has woven a real straitjacket. Red-haired Xenia has a silkworm complex, and she herself is surprised that everything worked. Her green-haired friend winks. They settled up for last time. The breeder finds the invasion of university bugs a curious event. Gallia breaks the threads and declares that all these smart larvae with a few tricks up their sleeve are no match for her. With a powerful explosion, Professor John G appears and asks how Gala will like his tricks. He, as promised, is ready to do anything for Nesta's safety and will definitely not let him go unpunished twice. The professor asks, who wants to burn first? Gallia grimaces with displeasure when she sees John G. The professor promised that they would see each other again. But in order to say how fed up he was with their antics and constant attempts to interfere in the students' lives, he had to drag himself all the way here. It turns out that the burn on her face that Gallia received from the professor 5 years ago didn't mean anything to her. This time the fire for the freaks will burn brighter. Gallia asks the old man to stop living in the past. Shin suggests moving from words to action. The breeder would be curious to see the fire show, but another time. He thinks it's time to return and entangles Gallia in a puppet net. Shin is outraged, but the breeder orders his carrier Phil Gallia to be delivered to the lab despite her protests. And Phil and Gallia literally dissolve into thin air before our eyes. The professor notes the skill of mimicry to the environment. The breeder suggests a peaceful separation. He removed Gallia to avoid bloodshed and is even considering giving away the orphanage children in the spray. The professor clarifies with Hunter that the leader of the group is the breeder. John explains that they had to comb through the entire region of the defeat to finally find the leader of the underground workers collecting jungle juice. This was only possible due to constant sabotage against his students. The professor is absolutely sure that his actions are just retribution. He forgets about the recoil and concentrates his forces as much as possible. The breeder stares wide-eyed at the bombardier beetle's menacing stance. The professor uses the super blast bunker buster. Even students and university staff standing at a distance felt the power of the blast wave. Only John G can create something like this. But when the smoke clears, the professor sees something unexpected in front of him. The breeder escaped the roasting by taking cover behind a giant centipede, but was impressed by the bombardier beetle's fiery might. In response, the centipede wriggles and throws the students in different directions. The breeder achieved such an impressively large size of the individual by regularly feeding the hybrids meat, and he intends to end their meeting solely for the sake of those present, and not for his own sake. He just doesn't want to regret it if he kills everyone. Hunter doesn't understand why the giant centipede, essentially just a beetle, inspires inexplicable horror. The guy can't even approach her. The breeder had intended to absorb the entire company, starting with Hannah, but now he is forced to postpone his plans in order to settle some things. But they will definitely meet. After these words of the breeder, the centipede dives into the tunnel. It turns out that an underground passage was planned and dug to allow for escape. Hunter believes that the breeder can be caught by going underground, since he still has the children from the orphanage in his clutches. Without finishing speaking, the guy falls flat on the ground. The professor explains that the student had exhausted himself to the point of extreme exhaustion, which was to be expected given the level of his opponents. John G is very impressed that the guy was able to hold out for so long. It means he learned to use his complex. The professor sees promising potential in the boy. Then everyone returned calmly to nest. Hannah has returned to normal according to lab tests. The side effects of Galena's poison have been neutralized. She demands chicken, refusing hospital food. Rima and the other children were transferred to another orphanage through the board of directors of Nest, which John believed could be trusted. The breeder and Galia cannot be found, which causes serious concern. John doesn't know where they might have gone because he was only involved in spying and protecting children from the orphanage. No matter how much Hunt tried to find out, the tarantula replied that he ended up in the same room with the guy simply because there were no other places. Sam thinks that June is unfairly occupying a hospital bed and that he belongs in the basement, to which he calmly asks to speak less loudly since they are in a hospital. Hunter sees that June is great at throwing Sam off balance with just a few words. Despite the obvious defeat, June is still convinced of his own rightness, and he constantly keeps repeating that living without strength is tragic. Hunt acknowledges that the world is a cruel place and that one's destiny is often determined by one's origins. But the guy is sure that everyone is the architect of their own happiness. And Jun remembers being thrown aside with one blow by an evil creditor, who then took a stool and declared that he hated children. They were only good for beating. At that moment, Jun closed his eyes and prepared for the blow, which he avoided because his mother covered him with herself, and she immediately began to reassure her son that everything was fine with her, and that he shouldn't worry about the blood. Mom always promised to make the baby happy and spoke of her love. When Jun's wounds heal, security takes him out of the hospital room. June apologizes to Hannah for all the inconvenience, and she responds by calling the tarantula a fool. Hunter returns to the dorm and worries about the children left in the clutches of the breeder. After being discharged, the boy intends to focus on his studies. But when he leaves the bathroom, he sees Gina, who has somehow gotten into his room. The girl apologizes for climbing through the window, but she wants to talk to Hunter. Gina asks if the guy really slept with Hannah. Hunter was taken aback by the unexpectedness and opened his mouth. Just half an hour ago, Gina was drying her hair and arguing that only psychos could make hybrids out of children. Hannah interrupts with a funny story. She got drunk to the point of passing out at the welcome party. She came to her senses the next morning in the same bed with Hunter, which made her very happy. Gina even drops the hairdryer from this situation. The next second, she is already standing by the window. The neighbor asks where Gina is going, to which the girl replies that something needs to be fixed. But Hannah doesn't understand why she should go through the window. Scorpio asks to pass something on to Hunter if Gina's going to him. Hannah asks him to tell her what happened between them, but she doesn't finish telling him what exactly and rolls over onto her side. And he asks Gina to forget it, saying that she herself will thank the guy when she sees him. Gina leaves through the window without comment. Hunter, who had been through everything since being transferred to Nest, had never been so afraid under any circumstances. And Gina smiles and advises to choose your words carefully. Hunter ends up giving a confused account of what happened in hopes of avoiding the death penalty. After listening to the guy's confused explanations, Hannah feels extremely awkward because of her wild imagination. Hunter adds that he was popular at his previous university, but he never even held hands with girls, because things didn't work out with Hillary. Gina claims that this is not true. The guy was definitely not only holding hands, but also holding a certain girl in his arms. But Hunter, as luck would have it, is so excited that he can't remember what Gina is talking about and continues to insist that he has never had anything like this. The guy thanks Gina from the bottom of his heart. She always comes to his aid, despite her own condition. This was the case in the fake warehouse and in the fight with the breeder. He just doesn't know how to thank the girl. Gina moves closer to him and expresses confidence that he will find a way to show his gratitude. The next day, a meeting is held in the university conference room. Professor Mudd announces the dean's decision to take the breeders' organization seriously. The university begins to prepare for a large-scale war. John clarifies that thanks to the tarantula's testimony, a little information about the enemy's location appeared. The breeder has apparently abandoned his spy, Jun Lee. Mudd plays a video of the interrogation that took place before Lee's imprisonment. The pet shop group wants to completely change the social structure of human society by creating a world of insect people. The Angel Orphanage is just one of many places where people are turned into insectoids. But where the other points are, June doesn't know. The breeder is cautious. Professor Ivana is upset that the coordinates of the points are not known. However, June secretly found out that all the transformed hybrids were being kept in a lab. The professor clarifies that it is not known for sure whether the leader and Shin are there, but this is one of the centers of the group. There will definitely be leads in the surrounding area. A laboratory has been set up on the remote Black Island where people rarely visit. John suggests sending a couple of his graduates there to do some reconnaissance. Mad announces the dean's decision to send a team of freshmen who will be selected in a group competition. John is indignant. Newbies with no experience. Hank explains seniors are swamped with other tasks, and all that is needed is to conduct reconnaissance safely. Mad reassures there are talents in the first year that the dean wants to fully reveal as quickly as possible. Ivana agrees, but newbies should be able to handle reconnaissance just fine. John adds that we shouldn't forget why Galya Shin left. Hank Mudd says the enemy's plans must be taken into account. But the university can no longer overprotect its students. They must grow up. Gina complains about the food being too spicy. It's like a fire in the fire. Hunter hands her a glass of water, but he's not sure it's enough, since the girl herself ordered the spiciest dish. Gina rarely goes to cafes, but the girls have praised the local dumplings with carbonara sauce 100 times. You can't eat the huge portion alone. Hunt sees a typical urban area, where life is in full swing. Gina explains that this is where the people who didn't go to college come from. Everyone wants simple pleasures. The girl asks where Sam went, whom she did not see in the room yesterday. The neighbor was allowed to visit his parents for the weekend. Gina thinks Hannah must be lonely right now. Then a question comes from the door of the cafe. What are they doing here together? At the entrance, classmates Xena and Dana laugh at their reaction. Pak asks if they came to eat dumplings too. Xena blurts out that it's not a date, and immediately apologizes, hearing Gina's tone. Dana heard that a lab was opening, and Xena suggested that they go together to submit applications. The girl thinks they should go too. Hunt doesn't understand what kind of research they're talking about. Gina explains that the lab not only studies a lot, but also creates special equipment for secret agents and students, like their uniform. The lab hosts open days where students can apply for funds to enhance the facility. But now the opening of the laboratory speaks of preparations for war. The guys go to the research center of the Technical Development Department, or the laboratory as everyone calls it. Neither Gina nor Hunter have ever been here before, and they look at the strange equipment around them. Dana asks what Hunt wants, a mask or a suit. He doesn't know, he was just following the girls. The girlfriends want to get a weapon that can handle even Hunt and Gina. They remember the professor's test and are grateful to the guy, but are very upset about their helplessness in battle. It was then that the girlfriends decided to become stronger, so as not to end up as someone's snack, as Professor G put it. Hunter feels the same way and understands what exactly he needs if he has the opportunity to get even with the breeder. A guy fills out an application form for the production of special equipment, which surprises Gina, who thought the guy was upset that he missed the breeder and didn't save the children. She wanted to support him and change the scenery, so she dragged him to a cafe for some spicy dumplings. Now the girl is relieved to see that the guy can handle everything. John and Ivana on the roof of the university. The doctor notes the dean's peculiar approach to the course registration process, and now the competition. Ivana heard that there are rare complexes among first-year students. They will probably win. John thinks that it is not important. He is sure that in a game of survival, the winner will be the one who wants to survive the most, and not the one with the stronger combat complex. Hunter, meanwhile, orders specialized protective glasses for himself. In the shelter of the pet shop, the lab technician doubts that he wants to know about the action happening before his eyes. It's just that in front of him the breeder holds the threads that bind Galya Shin. The breeder nevertheless explains that when they returned, the girl got into a fight, so they had to take countermeasures for self-defense. The lab assistant hints at overkill. The breeder agrees to let Galya go if they talk like intelligent adults. Instantly, the tip of her tail touches the peacekeeper's forehead. Galya would like to hear the bones of his skull crunch if she weren't in debt. But if the breeder interferes with her again, he will no longer be a survivor. He chuckles and asks for forgiveness for upsetting the girl so much. He, in the role of a hospitable host, will prepare tea instead of an apology. The breeder understands that Galya wanted to kill the Professor Bomber, and he becomes interested. The mystery of what happened in Nesta 5 years ago has never been solved. And Galya remembers how Professor G called her a monster. The burn on her face doesn't let her forget about it. The breeder holds out a cup and offers to help if Galya doesn't mind. At her first request, he will help ensure that the old man dies. Galya wonders how Han will arrange this, since the students won't fall for the same trick a second time. It is possible as an option that Phil takes Galya to the university. They are stronger, plus Galya knows where the enemy is. Han offers his people and asks not to hesitate to contact them if necessary. Galya is interested in what caused the attraction of unheard-of generosity. She knows very well that a man is kind only if he likes a woman or if he has his own interests. Han smiles at how accurately Galya described everything. In the classroom, the professor demonstrates what Black Island, a little-known and rarely visited place, looks like. Somewhere on the island, a pet shop base has been built where forcibly created hybrids are kept. Hunter is surprised that a terrorist group positions itself as Pet Shop. Selected first-year students will go there under the guise of tourists. People will be selected for this mission through a special competition. There was nothing like this last semester, so we can consider the upcoming one as another group assignment. It's just a matter of inspecting the area, but we must not forget who is hiding there. An important mission will be given to those who distinguish themselves in the competition, and everyone else will simply earn points towards the final rating. Everyone is delighted. Being on the team means getting closer to the status of the best student. Hunter is a little sad to hear about the group competition, but says out loud that they must win. Gina thinks the guy is worried about the kids again and promises to try. Hannah looks guiltily at the guy. Hunter is shaking with indignation. What if they don't pass? Then the absences during the time of saving Hannah will lower his rating for the semester. Gina thinks Hunt is shaking with worry for the babies. Hunt is praying to be the best. Hannah sighs. John announces the rules. Everyone will be divided into 4 groups. Those who pass the first round move on to the second. The finalists go to the island. Students' skills will be tested in close combat, but killing and maiming opponents is prohibited. You just have to use your complexes. Sam is excited about the prospect of a wall-to-wall game where you just have to knock your opponents down to win. Hannah is ready to tear everyone apart. The professor emphasizes that the point of the competition is not in fighting with peers. It is necessary to assemble a team of researchers for an important task. Each group will choose their headquarters location and place a flag there. The only way to win is to steal the opponent's flag. The coordinates of the enemy headquarters will not be known until at least one member of the opposing group is captured. Gina realizes that she is about to participate in a simulated battle, which will be excellent practice in locating the group's hideout. The professor confirms the headman's guess. The rules are specially designed for the conditions of the upcoming task. The competition begins immediately. Group A heads out to the training ground with Hunter carrying a briefcase. The remaining students in the auditorium are watching them, and they see that the guy got an amplifier from the tech department. The student is sure it will be interesting since Gina, Hannah, and the newcomer are on the same team. But there is a weak link in the team. Hannah and Sam are arguing about how to plant the flag. The professor declares the first round of the competition open. The members of Group B immediately rush off somewhere. Xena and Dana run towards Group A. The remaining 2 members of Group B guard their flag at the base while the girls search for the enemy base. The professor believes that the most effective way is to find your own opponents and not waste time. Finding and catching your opponents is the fastest way to victory. The girlfriends run straight into Hunter and Gina's ambush. Hunter picks up flight speed, and at the same time she asks her girlfriends for forgiveness in advance. It turns out that this was exactly the moment the girls needed. Group A doesn't understand what happened. Dana, being a horned spider, is able to throw a web like a mace when hunting, and now she has become the owner of a weapon with which she will defeat everyone. Gina flippantly calls the mace a slow weapon that can't hit them. But she immediately realizes that she can't move from the spot. Cena shouts to her friend to begin. The headman's legs are in silk threads. While bound, Gina will not be able to dodge the mace. But Hunter manages to snatch it right from under the blow. Girlfriends ask if they have become more dangerous, even though they still look harmless. The girls agree, since Hunt and Gina have recently been in trouble, meaning they have more combat experience. But according to her friends, this is not a guarantee of victory. The professor notes that the couple is strong, but as a team the girls work much more harmoniously. The spectacle awaiting observers is clearly entertaining. The task is to identify the strongest students in practice. Dana throws her mace, which lands neatly between a couple of opponents, scattering them to the sides. Hunt is wary. He can easily kill them with one blow. He wonders how Dana's complex was able to create iron weapons and whether such insects can really exist in nature. But they do, including in Korea. Horned spiders form a sticky ball at the end of their web and swing it like a mace to capture their victims. After the explanation, Hunter realizes that Dana is a spider, and the realization of this fact does not please the guy, causing a negative image. Gina adds that all spiders have the same weak point. They compensate for their banal physical weakness with webs and poisons. Thus, in hand-to-hand combat, spiders are not rivals. But then the headman finds himself swaddled in a straitjacket. Xena notices that last time only sharp claws helped the enemy escape. But it is impossible to break free from the strongest threads of the silkworm with your hands. Hunter rushes to the rescue, shouting that he will tear the silk threads with his teeth. Dana hits the guy with a mace, not letting him get close. Hunter is amazed at how much the girlfriends have changed since the first test task. They work flawlessly as a team. Xena specifies that at least one member of the rival group must be caught so that the university can provide the coordinates of their base. The hanging headman praises the amazing work of her girlfriends, from whom she never expected to receive a solid rebuff. But since she has already figured everything out, she sees no point in holding back any longer. The girlfriends are simply stunned by this turn of events. Hunter also opens his mouth in surprise. Xena doesn't understand how Gina got away. Dana throws her mace. The headman reminds that she also visited the laboratory, from where she received a special amplifier, a weapon specifically designed for her fighting style, reminiscent of the spikes on a cockroach's legs. With these words, Gina hits the mace. Its spikes show amazing efficiency. Even a piece of the mace breaks off at the point of impact. Thus, the headman tested her special brass knuckles, black thorns, in action. Dana can't understand where Gina got such power from. She shouts for Xena to cast her net, but she asks her to wait as weaving takes time. Gina yells that it's Hunter's turn now. The guy didn't put on his new glasses, but he has an interesting and proven trick up his sleeve. Pushing off from the tree, he flies down like a bullet. Hunter doesn't want to hurt anyone, but he can't afford to miss out on a chance to win. The professor realizes that this simple trick can easily kill. The guy uses blank-shot hunting rifle. By correctly using the dragonfly's abilities, you can seriously intimidate your opponent. Since Dana is thus eliminated, the coordinates of Group B's base are revealed, and the students are making noise in the auditorium, discussing Hunt's cool trick and the dashing headman with brass knuckles. The professor understands that only a dragonfly is capable of braking at the last second before a collision, but the maneuver has not yet been honed. Hunt hopes Dana isn't too scared. She admits the pair are a bit too seasoned competitors. Xena is panicking and wondering if she will be able to fight two opponents at once, and apparently makes a decision about a tactical retreat. Gina screams at the girl not to run in that direction, but Xena flies out onto the edge of the cliff at full speed and very naturally screams in fear. The girl doesn't have time to stop, and before the eyes of the professor, Xena flies into the abyss, but a strong hand manages to grab her. Gina saves her classmate at the last second. Xena, hanging over the abyss, thanks. And then he flies down along with his savior, who swallowed her bait. Hunter and Dana watch their fall. Xenia was sure that the caring class leader would rush to save her, since she had also returned everyone's student IDs. Sweet Gina always worries about the whole group, so Xena played dirty on her opponent's weakness without enthusiasm. The girl asks for forgiveness, but she and Dana also want a chance at Cinderella. According to the rules of the competition, Gina Park has been eliminated, and the coordinates of Base A have been revealed. Gina is surprised that Xena wove a whole cocoon for her, but the girl explains that everyone is afraid to fall. Hunter and Dana are relieved to learn that the flight and subsequent landing were without casualties. The professor reports that the score between the teams is equal. Observers see that the defenders of Flag B have left their base. Hunter is also about to go for the flag, but at that moment his phone rings. It's Sam who reports that they're in trouble because Group B's defenders have already arrived. Hunter thinks they left their flag and went looking for their base, which is why they ended up nearby. Sam tried to resist the attackers, but he couldn't because their complexes conflicted. With difficulty speaking, Sam announces that they have lost. Hunter walks to his lab case, and he declares that the game is not over yet. The professor comments that half of Group B left the base unguarded, but in doing so gained a strategic advantage over their opponents. Gina prevents Hunter from opening the case. She suggests keeping the glasses for later, since the guy still has difficulty handling them. Gina and Sam are about to return, as the organizers ask the losing team to come back to the lecture hall. The headman is confident that they will be able to win back. There is another member on their team. Meanwhile, Hannah, grumbling discontentedly about the wasted time, returns to the base. She felt the vibrations. Scorpions are especially sensitive to them and went to investigate. She didn't find the enemy base, but she did get some loot. She had no idea that there were bears here. Group B frankly doesn't understand what's going on. Hannah is not clear who is suddenly standing next to their flag. Long reflections are not her strong point. Everything and everyone in Hannah's path is scattered. Guillaume, with his rhinoceros beetle complex, no longer doubted his victory, but he immediately warns that he has problems controlling his strength. Sam screams that Hannah is being attacked from above. She looks up and there it is snowing. Hannah doesn't understand where the snow suddenly came from, but Dari, with her wave complex, kindly explains that these are her poisonous scales falling. The poison causes an allergic reaction when it comes into contact with the skin. Since Hannah is covered from head to toe in it, she will soon be screaming in pain. Hannah, who is not susceptible to poisons, only smiles at the explanation she hears. She is in a hurry to upset Group B because they are guaranteed to be screwed. Dari is surprised that her poisonous scales didn't work. Guillaume promises to deal with the girl himself, but the graceful Hannah rushes headlong towards the rather large Guillaume. From above, Dari encourages him that it's stupid to spar with a rhinoceros beetle, let G press harder. The rivals look like an elephant and a pug, but the girl holds her position. Guillaume puffs but can't move her, and suddenly Hannah, whose complex had apparently developed since the last fight, begins to transform before our eyes. The Scorpio girl complex has simply evolved, and with strong claws it is much easier to fight off a rhinoceros beetle. Very soon the strong man Guillaume is thrown head over heels to the side, and the enraged Hannah rushes to the stunned Dari, which flies after G. The opponents are stacked in a neat pile. A smiling Hannah in the Emperor Scorpion stance declares that Team B is no match for her, and the hardness of her gauntlet move was only 20%. Xena runs as fast as she can to defend their flag, but Hunter snatches the flag from his opponents. The winner of the first round of competition is determined. The students heatedly discuss Hannah's toughness and the rookie's skills as key elements in Group A's victory. Professor G is surprised that Hannah was able to master her complex on her own. All the participants of the initial round showed themselves to be excellent fighters, but this pair gets the Grand Prix. Perhaps the experience of the fight with Pet Shop had an effect. Dana is sad that they lost one step away from victory, and Gina is pleased with the work of her group. Group D understands that this round will not be easy for them, but one of its participants is not at all discouraged, believing that there is always a chance. Sam falls into deep thought, and Hannah can't leave the big guy Guillaume alone. Sam's mind is filled with memories of being considered a dead weight on the football team. As a guy, other team players asked him not to interfere if he was not able to help in any way. Then he feels Hunter touch his shoulder. It turns out they are already in the auditorium, and it is time to go to the next round. Sam was so lost in thought that he missed the entire second round of Group C and D, which Group D won. But the round flew by so quickly that even Hunter couldn't figure out what his opponent's complexes were. There was even an accident, and a girl from Group C was taken to intensive care, which speaks volumes about the strength of Group D. Sam is indignant that someone overdid it so much that the girl ended up on an IV. Gunther from Group D, whose complex is unknown, comes up to them to say hello. He pats Gina on the shoulder in a friendly manner and asks her to be gentler with them than with Group B. Then Gunther also pats the bored Hannah and asks her not to go too far despite her desire to win. And passing by Sam, he notices that alas, not everyone can do this. Meanwhile, the professor announces that Groups A and D have made it through to the finals. The upcoming duel will determine the best students of the course. Gina suggests splitting up as in the first round, but not letting down our guard. The headman asks Sam to keep a closer eye on the perimeter. Professor John just opens his mouth to announce the start of the round, when his eyes pop out of his head in surprise. Just like Hunter, who doesn't understand what's going on. Because Hannah suddenly leans over Sam and tries to kiss him. And Gunther reports that he has pollinated all his rivals, trying to touch them closer to the head. That is, everything went smoothly. The opponents did not suspect anything. Sonia Khan, with a spotted lanternfly complex, declares that the song of Group A is sung. The venom of the spotted lanternfly was described in medical treatises from the Joseon dynasty. But this substance also has a non-medical aspect of use. We are talking about a specific side effect of the poison. Gina asks if Hunt is hot because she suddenly feels very warm. With that, the girl unzips her jacket. Hunter's objections are ignored, and the headman's jacket flies at the guy like a hardened stripper. Moreover, Gina seriously intends to take off her top next. In the auditorium, Dana tries to close Ksenia's eyes. The broadcast goes to YouTube. Even Dari shouts that Gina needs to be stopped. Ji-Om covered his eyes with his hands. It is clear to the professor that before the start of the round, Sonia Khan managed to use the complex, but there is no evidence, and a disqualification cannot be announced. Sonia is happy with the turn of events and the fact that Team A is half women. Her complex doesn't work on men yet. Hannah has taken down the marooned Sam and demands that he relax and go with the flow. Gina purrs that she needs to catch Hunt before Hannah gets him. The guy ties her up with a jacket and tells her to stop. And the professor, to Hunter's horror, is forced to announce the start of the final round of the competition. Not without effort, the guys finally manage to tie up the girls with their own jackets. Sam is sure that the machinations of the freaks of Group D sleepy aggressors are left at the flag. Hunter laments that half the team has dropped out before they even started the game. He suggests changing the plan and exploring the area from the air. Sam insists that Hunt protect the flag. Sam was of no use to the team in the first round. This time it will be different, and Sam takes off with his trademark 7-league leaps. Hunter shouts after him not to try to handle everything himself. The day before, when Sam was sent home for the weekend, his mother was very happy to see him. She asked how school was going and if her son was doing anything dangerous. Sam replied that they were just constantly studying, but the perceptive mother can't help but worry, because there's not a word about Nest on the internet. When people came to her and told her about Nesta, they insisted on confidentiality. Since then, she has been worried but hopes for good grades for her son. She remembers the promise to restore the normal appearance of her son's legs if he studies well and becomes the best student. Sam had no idea she knew. Mom had found her son's old soccer uniform at home and washed it. She asks her son to wear this when he gets his legs back. Mom knows very well that he misses football a lot, and she's right. Every day Sam thinks about football and how he would like to correct his mistakes and play again. To do this, you first need to do something to get the Cinderella. Someone suddenly attacks from above, and he screams so loudly that Sam covers his ears to keep from going deaf. This is Jin-Mo with a cicada complex. For Cinderella, Sam must be the best on the team, and he intends to give it his all, which significantly reduces the cicada's chances. Before he grabs it, Jin-Mo notices a laboratory amplifier on the guy's legs. Sam gets what he wants. Jin-Mo is captured, revealing the coordinates of Group D's base. An inspired Sam sets off to the specified coordinates. Arriving at the place, he sees before him a place of complete silence and wilderness. Sam realizes that the wrong coordinates could not have been sent and is going to check the map. Suddenly, someone's hand drags him underground. Sam is pulled down by Gunther, who is amused by the conceit of a guy who is only capable of slowing down the team. The guy is surprised to realize that Team D was somehow originally based below ground. The mole cricket has very developed forelimbs, adapted for digging. There used to be a lot of these insects in Korea. Yulia Chan stands in front of Sam with a mole cricket complex and notices that they easily set up an underground base. Gunther explains that since the opponents need to take their flag from the base, it is best to hide the base underground. And he adds that no one can defeat them here. And for the second time, Team A will lose because of Sam's stupidity and arrogance. Gunther seems to be repeating the words of his former football teammates. Sam doesn't want to put up with this and rushes straight at the offender. And Gunther rejoices that the enemy has taken the bait and is rushing straight at him, which will give him the opportunity to deliver a targeted blow. Sam suddenly literally goes dark and smoke comes out of his head. He doesn't understand why he stopped seeing. The audience of students is frozen in shock. Some are unable to watch. The professor yells at Group D that he warned them against seriously injuring the participants. Gunther asks for forgiveness, saying it was an accident, but Professor Ivana will still cure everyone. And it becomes crystal clear to Professor John that Gunther did this on purpose. And the arrogant student stands over Sam and asks where his bravado went. And he adds that losing sight is scary. The girl actually cried her eyes out in the first round. Gunther remarks that it's nothing personal, they just can't beat Team A without using tricks. So, According to the law of the jungle, the strongest wins. Gunther had already taken out handcuffs to put on Sam. All that remains is to snap the bracelet. Gunther takes his time, enjoying the moment of triumph. He notices that Sam tried hard. Before Sam's clouded vision, a saving figure appears behind the enemy against the backdrop of a gap in the ground. Something flashes past at lightning speed. And in the next split second, the handcuffs are already in Hunter's hands. Gunther doesn't understand what the hell is going on and how the guy managed to notice and grab the handcuffs at such speed. Hunter, wearing his compound vision lab glasses, apologizes to Sam for the delay. Now the guy seems to have learned how to use the amplifier and uses Dragon's Vision. 10 minutes ago, a message arrived with the unlocking of the coordinates of the D-base. So Sam succeeded. Hunter is tormented by doubts about whether to join Sam or stay with the girls, who have not yet regained consciousness. But the guy understands that Sam is one-on-one with the enemy team, which means he needs to help him. Hunter dons his new ability enhancer. Its properties are simply incredible. In the morning, Hunt went to the lab, where he received the device along with permission to use it. But the mechanic added additional features. It is better to test the device before using it in combat. The basis is hexagonal lenses that improve facet vision. The most important addition is the built-in disc on the side. If the disc is activated, it may cause motion sickness, nausea, or loss of consciousness. Hunter does not understand why such a function is needed at all. The students and professor watch on screen as Hunter, wearing glasses, vomits. The guy just forgot to turn off the disc out of habit. After a simple manipulation, the feeling of nausea instantly disappears. Hunter rushes to help Sam, turning on maximum acceleration. The guy arrived just in time. Gunther is sure that Hunt has a very useful laboratory amplifier. However, Hunter was too late because Sam had already lost his sight. Gunther declares that Hunt is next in line to be blinded and shoots the boy with a caustic liquid. Hunter realizes it's acid, judging by the burn-like inflammation of the skin. Gunther, with a fire ant complex, regrets that the protective glasses saved the boy's eyes. You shouldn't lean over to look at fire ants more closely, because these insects shoot formic acid at predators. Not lethal, but damaging to the optic nerve. Formic acid can cause complete blindness. It is so irritating. Hunter was saved by his glasses, but Sam was clearly unlucky. The guy attacks Gunther, who is slow from his point of view. Fire Ant acknowledges the boy's speed, but isn't too concerned about it. Gunther tells us to close it. Immediately, the exit from the dungeon closes from above, and the ant proclaims that Hunt cannot escape. Gunther had left a team member up there specifically for this occasion to block the only escape route. Now the daytime insects are trapped in the darkness of the underground cave. Hunter can't see anything, but consoles himself with the fact that his opponents are also blind. And then the guy gets punched in the jaw. Gunther gloats. He can see perfectly well in the dark since ants live underground. Unlike dragonflies, whose vision is not adapted to pitch darkness. That is, only Hunt sees nothing. Just as the guy is about to take off, the mole cricket Yulia-chan grabs him by the legs with her strong claws. Hunter is shocked because Yulia crawled out to him straight from underground. Gunther smirks that the cool glasses against the darkness are useless and prepares to spray formic acid. The audience freezes in tension in front of the darkened screen. The professor reasons that each complex faces unfavorable circumstances in the air, underwater, or underground. The winner of the competition will be determined by the ability to quickly overcome emerging difficulties. Gunther rejoices, saying that Team A is not at all scary. They just had to eliminate the headman. Hunter laments how helpless he feels in the darkness. Circumstances leave him no choice because he does not intend to give up victory. Hunter told the lab that he just wanted the right glasses. But the lab technician explained that the extras were there for a reason. Glasses are such an effective tool that their potential capabilities have to be deliberately underestimated. That's why nausea occurs when restrictions are lifted. A stunned Gunther doesn't understand where the guy disappeared to. Activating the glasses disc removes restrictions and improves facet vision. Hunter sees as clearly and distinctly as never before, and freely hunts for hares. Yulia-chan doesn't understand why the guy suddenly regained his sight. The dragonfly, a diurnal insect, is most active at the beginning of sunset at dusk. The eyes of a dragonfly contain more light-sensitive proteins than human eyes, so the insect sees perfectly well in minimal light. And now Hunter's facet vision is supplemented with special lenses. The guy is endowed with vision that is as close as possible to that of a dragonfly, plus a side effect, nausea. But Hunter sees much better than before. Meanwhile, the students wonder what is going on in the darkness of the underground base. Suddenly, the boulder blocking the entrance simply falls inside, and Hunter flies out of the hole, taking revenge on Gunther. Sonia Khan stands with her mouth open. In the auditorium, students jump up from their seats in mute surprise. The professor strokes his beard with satisfaction, realizing that the guy has mastered the lab glasses. Hunter has now learned to use night vision. The guy finishes off his opponent right on the fly. The system records Gunther's elimination due to his inability to move. Sonia Khan and Yulia Chan rush to defend the flag with all their might. Yulia is already reaching her claw towards the shaft, but a split second is enough for Hunter to snatch the flag and dash away. Sonia, in a rage, decides to use a weapon that was made in the laboratory based on her poison. She takes out a bug tranquilizer gun. Hunter sees the gun fire the moment it fires, like in slow motion. The guy simply deflects the bullet with his hand. Sonia can't believe her eyes. Hunter flies out of the underground base like lightning. The professor declares Group A the winner of the competition. The girlfriends are surprised how the guy was able to defeat 3 opponents on his own. Hunter looks around for Sam, who needs to be rushed to the medical center. And Sam, lying in the complete darkness of the underground base, revels in self-flagellation. He again recalls his football past. When he hears permission to open his eyes, he sees Professor Ivana in front of him. Ivana saved Sam's vision, but everything may seem blurry for a couple of days, so the patient's condition will be monitored. The doctor also congratulates the stunned Sam on winning the competition. Professor Ivana is also surprised that Hunter dealt with 3 opponents on his own. Sam doesn't understand how the newbie could become so strong so quickly. Professor John sends the boy to the lecture hall. He tries to argue that Sam is still weak. G reminds him that he is the one who gives the grades, after which Hunter leaves without question. John and Ivana understand that little Sam has grown up in real fights with dangerous opponents in recent times. G explains that all students have different skills, and there will always be someone who is better than them. But unfortunately, in John's opinion, Sam isn't trying at all. Just as the student is about to protest, the professor announces that the class is over. Sam needs to get better and pack his things for the trip to Black Island. The professor believes that the student will be able to think about his words better there. That night, the guys are drinking and discussing the events of the day. Gina can't believe she took her clothes off and hit on Hunt. The guy calms her down, saying it was because of the poison. Here Hannah got drunk and is sleeping on the floor, not worrying about anything. Xena and Dana also tease the mischievous headmistress, who, it turns out, likes to show her feelings in public. The girlfriends congratulate Team A on receiving a task that will add points to their rating. Hunter is a little disappointed that getting points won't be that easy. While lifting weights, Professor John stated that points would only be awarded after the laboratory coordinates were confirmed. The rector ordered this so that the points would stimulate the speed of completing the task. Dana isn't even surprised that she'll have to work hard to earn points. Hunter is confident that he just needs to try hard on the island to make up for the classes he missed. Dana clarifies that the boys will be posing as tourists, so they need to dress appropriately. Nest's uniform is clearly inappropriate. Xena offers to weave for them clothes that look ordinary, but will have the properties of a university uniform. Hunt believed that the form was created using special technology. Xena explains that she can create any tissue she eats. Sanya will make clothes for the whole group without any problem. Just let them write their sizes. Gina writes down in a notebook. Her friends close their eyes as if to say they're not peeping. The end of the competition is celebrated further, and the girlfriends exchange sly glances. A couple of days later, Group A arrives at the Black Island pier. Hunter and Gina look around. Hannah thinks to start looking for the laboratory right from the pier. A university assistant also emerges from the boat, insisting that student safety comes first. Therefore, Assistant Professor Bin from the Department of Practical Entomology will be accompanying the group. It is unknown which locals work for the pet store, so the most important thing is that they are not exposed. Bean intends to blend in with the crowd as a regular tourist, but there is no crowd, no other tourists, and the assistant looks quite striking. Sam continues to think about the professor's words about him not trying, but still doesn't understand what that means. Frankly, he doesn't care. He just wants to be the best student in his class. That is, he must earn points by surpassing everyone in the group. Sam decides to find the lab first. The boys don't understand what Sam is silently thinking about. The group is accommodated in a local hotel. In the room, Assistant Bin hands everyone bags and asks them to change clothes first. Xena wove special clothes for everyone, suitable for tourists. The assistant announces that the mission will officially begin as soon as the boys change their clothes. Hunter takes out his swimming trunks from the bag. Gina and Hannah look at swimsuits. The deserted beach of Black Island looks quite nice. The guys and their assistant head there first. Hannah encourages a shy Gina, assuring her that she looks good. The headman is indeed a very attractive tourist. While Hunter gapes with his mouth open, Gina mentally promises to take revenge on Xena for such a setup. Hannah is predictably annoyed by the inflatable ring that is designed to hide her tail. Sam, in long sweatpants, is thinking alone again, but he immediately notices that Hannah is staring at him. Hunter wonders how the swimsuits will help the mission. Bin explains that according to June, the lab staff regularly patrols the island. At the slightest suspicion, no traces of the laboratory will be found. It will simply move. Gina notes the enemy's scrupulousness. Therefore, the group must appear to be ordinary tourists. The only attraction on Black Island is the beach, so they should visit here first. The group enjoys a beach holiday. Hannah is enthusiastically making some kind of monsters out of sand. The main task is planned to come after the beach. It turns out that rest can be tiring and make you hungry. The guys didn't see any young people at all, just a couple of locals of mature age. Assistant Bean explains that the islands are now mostly inhabited by elderly people. Apparently, due to the sparse population, the pet shop built its laboratory here, where only a few old people live out their days. Chewing Hunter notices something out of the corner of his eye. Gina wonders what has the guy worried. He saw a glimmer on the pier. Looking more closely, Hunt sees that these are binoculars. This means they are already being watched. Bean asks everyone to remain calm and not to attract attention. Perhaps a patrol is watching them. The group will have to cope with all the circumstances. The old man who was watching through binoculars leaves the pier. Hunter thinks he's in the clear. Bin thinks that if the old man goes to the lab, the place can be tracked down with his help, but now it is risky to follow him. It was decided to return to the hotel and rest in order to begin the search tomorrow. Sam looks thoughtfully after his departing grandfather. Hunter, although scared that they were immediately discovered, admits that a beach holiday is fun. The boy had never been to the beach with friends and didn't expect that this would be waiting for him in Nest. Gina comes in and asks to bring Sam because Bean is going to discuss the plan. Hunter finds Sam's room empty with the window open and wonders where his roommate could have gone. The old man sits on the pier again and looks at the empty horizon. Sam threatens to slit his throat if he doesn't tell him where the lab is. He remembered what the suspected spy was wearing during dinner, so he recognized him right away as he walked past the hotel. Sam saw this as a chance to complete the mission on his own. The old man calls the guy by name, which surprises him greatly. And the grandfather asks again if it is Sam in front of him and is glad that his grandson has returned. The grandfather asks to stay with him and not abandon the poor old man. The cafe owner notices that the old man is confusing the tourists again. Sam immediately zips up his special pants. The owner approaches, believing that the old man has discouraged the boy, and asks him not to worry about his grandfather. The grandfather has senile dementia, and after the departure of his grandson, who took care of him, he considers all young guys to be his grandson. The grandson's name is Sam Can, so he named the guy Sam. The grandson promised him to finish the job and come back. The owner of the cafe is sure that this is nonsense, an excuse to abandon the decrepit old man. But the grandfather comes here every day to meet the boat with his grandson. Sam stares at the lonely old man. He was abandoned because he became a burden. Sam is interrupted from his thoughts by his grandfather, who asks him to walk him home because he is hungry. Sam walks his grandfather home and puts him to bed. At least he was convinced that the old man was not an agent of the pet shop. Hunter goes to look for Sam and discovers binoculars on the dock. But it looks like the thing is broken because everything in the eyepieces is blurry. The guy puts the binoculars back and continues looking for Sam. At the same moment, a boat appears against the backdrop of the sunset. A man on a boat heads to Black Island and wonders why Galia Shin invited him to this wilderness. Perhaps Galia discovered another dragonfly? From an early age, Sam watched football matches with enthusiasm, closely following all the nuances of the game. Adults praised the boy, calling him a genius, although he started playing football without any talent. The secret of his genius was not a special technique or innate talent, but a genuine passion for football. But in his first official game, Sam lost and let the whole team down. He missed, which resulted in the loss of the match. He pushed himself to train harder because he felt like the team needed him. The game is tomorrow and Sam has problems with his legs. He doesn't know what to tell his coach when he can recover, but he promises to return to the team immediately after recovery. The coach says there is no need to return. The team whispers that Sam doesn't take hints, and he doesn't understand that he's simply dragging the team down. Sam immediately finds himself in Nest. Hunter, Gina, and Hannah ask Professor G to replace Sam because they feel he is not up to their level. Sam wakes up in horror. He had a nightmare. Over the next few days, the team searched different parts of the island under the guise of walking tours. However, no hint of a laboratory was found anywhere. At some point, Sam again sees the lonely old man on the pier. He still looks at the empty horizon. In the evening, the team has a barbecue. Everyone is upset that there is no result, and Sam has refuted the version with the old man. Hannah notices that Jun Lee has deceived them and throws drink on Hunter. The guy is indignant, but Hannah assures him that her hand simply shook. Sam went to get some drinks, but the store wasn't close. Gina wipes off the drenched Hunter. They don't understand what's going on with Sam. The guys agree that Sam has been acting strange these days. Hannah thinks he hasn't recovered from his injury yet. Gina is surprised that Hannah even noticed the injury. Hunt points out that she always teased Sam. Hannah explains that Sam always asks for it. Sam walks along the embankment, and he sees the old man still in the same place. Sam asks his grandpa to go home. It's late. No one will be home today. The old man objects because his grandson promised to return. Sam simply meant that it was getting late and getting cold. But the old man still refused to go home, and he adds that his little grandson still needs him. Sam remembers training to the point of exhaustion, believing that the team needed him. Sam says out loud that sitting here the old man will not bring his grandson back. Sam screams that his grandson simply abandoned his grandfather, because in this world people abandon everyone who burdens them. Sam yells at his grandfather to stop waiting in vain and touches the old man's shoulder. The guy realizes that his grandfather simply fell asleep sitting up. The owner of the cafe asks if the old man is bothering him, and adds that Sam is a good boy for reacting so indulgently. He asks Sam to walk the old man home if he is not busy. The guy does not object. On the way, he wonders why he suddenly allowed himself to snap at his grandfather. The road to the old man's house took a long time. Suddenly, the guy notices a smartphone on the nightstand. The question arises, why not call his grandson? The battery is dead, and Sam decides to charge the device in case the old man just doesn't know how. When the phone goes on, Sam's eyes widen. The phone clearly does not belong to the old man, but to his grandson. And if what you see on your smartphone is true, you need to immediately inform the team. But Sam's path is blocked by a giant hybrid. Hannah can't stand the wait and goes to look for Sam, promising to rip out all the locust's legs if she finds him. Suddenly, her hair falls onto her face. Hannah doesn't understand why the wind suddenly picked up. Sam runs away as fast as he can. Now all doubts disappear. The laboratory is definitely on the island. Hannah looks back. There is a stranger there who came from nowhere. Before leaving for Black Island, Professor John gave a special briefing. He reminded them that the group feeds its members with hybrid meat. Due to this, plus the forced strengthening of complexes, the pet shop hybrids are completely deprived of humanity. The professor expressed hope that students would not have to encounter such monsters. But if a collision does happen, the only thing the guys can do is run away as quickly as possible. Sam remembers these words of the professor and is amazed at how strong the hybrid is. In appearance, the monster resembles a member of the stag beetle family. But without a doubt, this hybrid can no longer be called a human. The monster snapped its claws loudly, nearly cutting Sam in half. Locust understands that his complex cannot withstand such pressure. The phone with evidence was found in his possession, which means he has to follow the professor's recommendations exactly. Sam makes a forced decision to make a tactical retreat. The student is sure that if he correctly identified the type of hybrid, then the stag beetle will never catch up with it. He is driven by the knowledge that once he delivers the evidence, the mission will be accomplished, meaning he will do it all alone. At the hotel, Sam suddenly slows down because he sees that Hannah is not there yet. In the hotel room, Hunter is upset that Sam and Hannah just ran away so he could wash all the dishes. He thinks they ran away on purpose to avoid helping. Gina finds Sam's phone. Assistant Bean clarifies that the guys were calling Sam, meaning he left without a phone. He asks where Hannah is. The guys think she went to look for Sam. Meanwhile, the horned stag stubbornly pursues its victim, muttering fragmentary words that it is young and fast, difficult to catch. On the hybrid's way, he comes across an old man's house, which the monster breaks into without thinking. The hybrid mumbles that he has to fulfill the quota, and reaches out his paw to the sleeping grandpa. But he doesn't have time to grab the old man because he gets hit on the back with a stone. Sam stands at the door and declares that it is bad to attack lonely sleeping old people. The guy lures the monster to him. The hybrid mutters that the boss would like the young meat better and heads towards Sam. The monster rushes at the boy, muttering that he is catching the young man. Sam manages to jump away from the thug who has opened his claws, and in a turn kick the hybrid with all your might. The guy understands that the enemy is trying to capture him and take him to the laboratory. Sam believes that the best thing to do is to run away from the monster and deliver the evidence he has obtained to the group. But if he does so, the harmless old man will be doomed to death. Sam can't leave his grandpa to his fate. The guy rushes to attack the horned brute. He clearly sees that he won't be able to take down such a hybrid on his own. But he simply has no other choice, so the guy kicks the beetle in the face. Moving much faster than the clumsy monster, Sam kicks the enemy from all sides. But his opponent is also touching. Sam is angry that he is being blinded, stung with poison, and now cut. Several of the guy's blows were particularly successful, but they did not affect the thug. The enemy suddenly disappeared somewhere, but the beetle hasn't gone anywhere. It's already jumping on top of its intended prey. The hybrid lands with a deafening roar, and he mumbles contentedly, saying that he caught him, holding Sam in his outstretched paw like a kitten. The guy is desperate at the thought that he is letting his group down again. For some reason, even under the threat of death, his thoughts are focused on the team, and the hybrid's face spreads into something like a smile. Now he will bring food home. Sam categorically disagrees with this ending of the story. He is absolutely sure that he would rather die than go through a similar situation again. Therefore, he decides to use the huge paw on which he hangs, and with its help, like with a pole, he swings and turns over. Sam then jumps up, pushing off from his paw, and he flies down like a stone at full speed, without being sure that the risky idea will work out. The hybrid extends its claws towards him and intends to catch the falling prey. Sam kicks with powerful legs, and both of the hybrid's claws fall to the ground. Sam won't let this situation slide. He assumes a locust stance to deliver a slash. He's going to catch the hybrid as living proof that the lab is here. Sam is now determined to become a team player. The hybrid howls mournfully about the lost claws. Sam is surprised to notice that his leg is no longer just a spike, but a huge blade has appeared. The hybrid flaps its huge paws in a frenzy, but the student is now much more confident in his abilities. The monster grabs Sam by the leg. The guy immediately uses the blade with all his might. The hybrid howls with a split muzzle. Sam has no doubt that he will win with this new opportunity. He attacks a wounded enemy. Locusts, like grasshoppers, are among the most cruel representatives of the order Orthoptera. Some of their species are significantly larger in size than their fellows. This phenomenon is called island gigantism. Individuals living on islands are significantly larger in size. Otherwise, they would not survive on a harsh, isolated piece of land. So Sam's complex, in an extreme situation, changed in a targeted way to ensure survival. With the advent of a new defense mechanism, the guy became able to significantly enhance his physical capabilities. The wounded hybrid grumbles that the meat is strong, but he must fulfill the quota. The wounds he received do not affect his determination to complete the mission. The opponents are about to clash again when suddenly someone's grunting is heard. This is a grandpa running, waving a bottle and yelling for the damn beast to get away from his grandson. Sam was simply taken aback by the surprise. The hybrid turns towards the old man and mumbles that the old and weak are also a quota. The monster swings its severed claw at the grandpa like a spear, but the guy manages to push the old man away and take the blow himself. Sam demands that grandpa not think about dying. He still needs to wait for his grandson to return. The hybrid throws the defeated victim onto the ground in front of itself. The monster is happy that he caught some young meat. The big guy is about to bring a good catch home. Sam realizes that now everything depends on Hunter. Assistant Bin negatively evaluates the lack of communication with the guys and suggests that they be considered to have been attacked by an enemy group. It was decided to split up and go searching. Any findings must be reported to Bin. Hunter runs around the area for a long time until he comes across familiar marks. He remembers that such tracks are left by Sam when he runs with his 7-league jumps. Once the professor found them by such tracks, Hunter rushes in the neighbor's footsteps and suddenly notices a phone in the grass. The device is definitely not Sam's or Hannah's. The guy examines the find. The notes contain a message asking to call the police. The owner lives on the island, takes care of his grandfather, but young people are disappearing. No one was found, and the locals were forced to resign themselves to it. But the owner discovered the place where all the missing were kept. Hunter realizes that the message leads to the location of the lab, but it was definitely not Sam who wrote it. Then a bloody grandfather who mistook Sam for his grandson emerges from the bushes and asks for help. The old man asks Sam to save him. Hunter runs to the island's pier. The note indicated this exact location, but they saw nothing there when they arrived. Hunter's gaze falls to the bottom, which now looks completely different. The laboratory is located directly under the pier. That is, it can only be seen at night during low tide. The guy is going to tell the others. Gina comes to the shore where Hannah's phone was last turned on. The girl cannot imagine what happened here. In front of her there are giant funnels with water, and it is not clear what kind of animal is capable of leaving such a thing. A stranger approaches Hunter and understands that Galya Shin was talking to him specifically about the guy, so he immediately offers a duel for the acquaintance. The stranger is curious about what kind of dragonfly is hidden in the guy's abilities. The red-winged dragonfly hybrid was transferred here a few days ago, and problems immediately began to arise. Hunter remembers Assistant Bean's instructions to flee immediately when confronted by an enemy. In this case, the guy decides to follow the advice of the university representative. But almost immediately he is overtaken by a red-winged stranger. Hunter fails to escape. Redwing is impressed by the skills of Nest's students, including Scorpion Girl, and believes that killing them is wasteful. Hunter screams what happened to Hannah. The stranger met the Scorpio Girl, and after exchanging pleasantries, they got into a fight. Redwing wanted to have fun, but the girl was no slouch. As a result, she got a little rough because he has control issues. The stranger teases him, saying that the guy is probably angry and wants to avenge his friend. But the red-winged one easily intercepts the swing for a strike with one hand. Then, without thinking twice, he throws the guy down. Hunter ends up in the water. The stranger's speed is not much greater than his, but it is not clear why he is so strong. Redwing immediately flies up to the guy and grabs him by the head with one hand. Then he effortlessly throws it towards the shore like a bowling ball. The stranger does not know how the guy managed to discover this object, but he is sure that while he is here, Hunter is unlikely to leave on his own 2 feet. Sam wakes up behind bars. The wound on his shoulder is bandaged. The student does not remember at what moment he lost consciousness, but he believes that the beetle defeated him and then dragged him here. Sam reasonably believes that he is in the laboratory itself. A hybrid approaches him and, speaking extremely politely, asks for forgiveness for providing first aid without asking, treating the wound on his shoulder. There are many hybrids behind the ant. The ant explains that they were also kidnapped and brought to this place by the horned monster. Here they were treated with jungle juice and turned into insectoids. Sam is surprised. He thought the lab would only contain inhuman hybrids that ate their own kind. He takes an involuntary step back. His cellmates immediately shout at him not to go near that cage. The student immediately understands why. All sorts of monsters are reaching out to him, chanting one word: meat. The ant explains that in the next cell are those who became monsters, and in this cell are all the rest. In other words, this is where they keep prey for the nearby monsters. At this moment, the door of the cell opens. The owner of a cafe on the embankment enters and discusses which of the prisoners will become dinner today. Sam belatedly realizes that this is the pet shop member patrolling the island. He must have turned in the student. And Sam kept wondering how the beetle had discovered him. Meanwhile, the owner of the cafe drags one of the captives away by the chain, who desperately asks to be released. Sam jerks to the rescue, but the chain won't let him. He yells that his cellmates are doing nothing. That poor guy will get killed. The cafe owner turns around and announces that the next victim will be an ant, Sam Kang. Sam realizes that the very polite ant is the lonely grandfather's missing grandson. The grandson explains that Sam found a note on his phone and his grandfather continues to wait for him. Sam thinks they need to get out of here quickly. Can believes it's impossible. They can't break the chains, and there are guard monsters roaming the corridors that they can't escape. Sam notices that the monster's claws have been sewn back on. He declares that the guards should simply be beaten up. Can explains that they were left to live as food, scared and weak, because training them was deemed pointless. Sam is outraged that someone can say that without even trying to escape. The grandson notes the student's kindness, but everyone here has long since said goodbye to life and hope. They are all sure that it is impossible to live looking like a monster. The cellmates all start crying at once. Sam's childhood memories come to mind. He knows how hard it is to believe in victory after losses. The hardest part was after losing 3-0. The whole team was plunged into self-flagellation from helplessness. And this state is difficult to change without outside influence. That is why the student clenches his teeth tighter. As an initial impulse, Sam breaks his chain, because he knows from his own experience that even the most desperate, deep down in their consciousness, just need a ray of light to change everything. The ability to light this beam is the main factor in the team's victory. Sam considers it the sign of a real player. It's an ability all great hitters have innately. So Sam asks, "What are the cellmates waiting for?" Redwing notes Hunter's increased speed. He notices the glasses and calls them a cool-looking toy. The guy was sure that he had hit the stranger, but he was a master of flying. Redwing explains that this is because his DNA has combined with a very unusual insect. Hunter asks not to get too cocky because he is not a simple guy either. The stranger asks what kind of guy he is. In response, Hunt states that he is a student who is ready to do anything for his rating. As soon as Gina received Hunter's cryptic message that the pier was a laboratory, she ran there as fast as she could. And something is clearly wrong with the pier, because the girl is met by a hybrid, muttering individual words. Catch, tourist, quota. In front of her is a pseudo-scorpion, an arachnid that catches its victims with long pincers from its forearm. The monster's face is without a shadow of humanity. He immediately pounces on the supposed prey, seeing in it only meat. But suddenly the hybrid stops in thick clouds of blue smoke. Gina doesn't understand where the strange smoke came from and why the hybrid just stopped. Then Assistant Bean appears with a cigarette in his mouth and warns the student not to inhale the toxic smoke. Bean is a tobacco hawk moth, a moth whose larva feeds on tobacco leaves, accumulating nicotine, which it then releases at its enemies. The assistant hasn't smoked for almost a month and now enjoys a cigarette. The smoke he produces is hallucinogenic to those who inhale it. Ben also received Hunter's message, but when he tried to call back, the connection was lost. He found out that Pet Shop had damaged local cellular repeaters, but it is unknown how the enemy knew and exposed their cover. Now they are cut off from the possibility of calling for reinforcements. But in any case, first they need to find Sam and Hannah. At this point, growling and drooling hybrids begin to crawl in a crowd from all sides, which seems odd since even the few locals shouldn't see monsters. The assistant remembers the professor's instructions to avoid fighting, so he has no choice because he needs to keep the students safe. And they can only reach the pier through a crowd of monsters. Redwing is simply stunned to hear that all the problems created for him are simply because of the threat of bad grades. He finds it incredible that students, like dogs, obey professors in order to get Cinderella. In his opinion, this behavior is no different from their laboratory rats, who are ready to do anything for the sake of hybrid meat, just like the students of Nest for the sake of the miracle potion. That is, the red-winged one does not see the difference between their hybrids and university students. Hunter flies at such a speed that the stranger does not see his movement. The guy declares that in Nesta no one gives up on themselves, their own kind or humanity. Hunter feels like he's finally nailed the annoying stranger. He realizes he needs to hurry to the lab for Sam and Hannah before the tide comes in. But suddenly the stranger rises to his feet again. He acknowledges Hunter's impressive complex and the fact that the guy is much faster than him in the air. However, now he intends to introduce his own tricks, which are fundamentally different from those of his opponent. The stranger assumes the antlion stance, making the physical transition to the larva. Moreover, his body changes and claws grow on his shoulders. Antlions are often confused with dragonflies, which are also members of the lacewing order. They can safely be called ant exterminators, since even the larvae of these insects hunt, driving ants into their earthen traps. But antlions' hunting skills are far from limited to elaborate traps. The predators don't just wait for their prey to fall into the trap, but instead brutally throw the ants onto the sand. The stranger in larval stance creates a sandstorm. Hunter is surrounded on all sides by sand whirlwinds through which he cannot escape. The stranger grins maliciously and waits for the guy to fall. Hunter falls and is completely sucked into the sand. Redwing boasts that no one has the same complex as him. Galia Shin, as soon as she saw his skills, immediately entrusted him with this laboratory, clearly falling in love with his charm and strength. Hunter understands that he needs to stall for time until Gina and Bean can get here. He suggests that the stranger surrender. The guy says that he reported everything to Nest, and help will come from there soon. Redwing notes that it was not without reason that this laboratory was given to his care. The reason is in the way he imposes his order. And then the tide comes in. The stranger explains that in fact the tide had already started a long time ago, but he had simply blocked the water's path with his sand barrier, because his goal is to destroy this laboratory on the orders of the breeder. The leader learned that the traitor Jun Li had learned of this place, and the red-winged one was sent to cover his tracks. Hunter yells that the stranger's comrades are also there. He laughs that the local monsters are just extra baggage. The water washes over Hunt, who is bound by sand. The stranger hopes that Gallia will reward him. There is no laboratory, no nest parasites. He also intends to finish off the bespectacled guy and the dark-haired girl, in connection with which he greatly regrets that he will not be able to watch the drowning of the bugs from nest. Half an hour ago, all the prisoners freed from their chains were sitting in their cell, and they watched Sam, who was beating his head against the bars like a fish against ice. Not a single scratch appeared on the bars. Even the monster guard got tired of watching and turned away. Sam wonders how to get out if the monsters from the neighboring cell can't chew through the bars either. Suddenly the power goes out in the laboratory. This plunges the joyless prisoners back into the depths of despondency after Sam's inspirational speech. Sam the grandson approaches the student and clarifies that there is a plan. They have somewhere to go next. The cellmates watch what is happening with interest. Sam assures that there is a place where insect people live peacefully, and a mixture called Cinderella is produced, which can restore human appearance. True, very little medicine is produced, but these words are quite enough for the aunt. The grandson explains that they remained here without hope, and the bars were not a deterrent at all. Ants have incredible strength that no other creature has. Sam Khan could easily remove the bars at any time. The cellmates are again encouraged. All that remains is to overcome the patched-up monster. Last time, Sam lost to the hybrid only because he had to protect his grandpa. But now the cellmates are ready to stand up for themselves. A crowd of former prisoners rushes to attack. A fierce fight with the guard ensues. The previously weak-willed prisoners tear the monster apart with their claws, paws, and teeth. The hybrid has no chance to resist. The ant demonstrates miracles of powerlifting. Sam uses a slash-and-locust stance, which becomes the final chord of the battle. Cellmates shed tears of joy. One of them points to the door outside because the locks don't work since there is no electricity. You still have to get through the members of the pet shop, but that shouldn't be a problem. Sam wonders why there is a window near the door. Coming closer, he sees that the corpses of the cafe owner and his comrades are floating in the water ahead. Sam shouts not to open the door, but seawater had already rushed into the room. I can't put the door back in place. Apparently the tide has come in. During high tide, the gates to the laboratory are always closed. Everyone tries to close the door together, but collective attempts to combat the elements are unsuccessful. Sam refuses to admit that the situation is hopeless. The water suddenly stops coming. It flows in a certain direction to where there is another chamber, in the wall of which there is a gaping, impressive hole. This is how the prisoners escape into a pipe connected to the sewer. There is a familiar figure at the grate ahead, and curses about dirt can be heard. The hole was made by the mischievous Hannah. To the stranger's surprise, Hunter manages to escape. Redwing asks in bewilderment who the guy is. Sam wonders what Hannah was doing in the lab, looking for him, and immediately she hits him in the jaw with a wish to come down to earth from heaven and understand why she gave up looking for a guy. Hannah sadly reports that she has met her match. Meanwhile, the enraged Hunter attacks the stranger. He wonders why the guy who didn't consume the flesh of hybrids tried to bite him, and suddenly he began to growl and fight like a beast. The stranger believes that the student, like Gallia Shin, is a special specimen. Redwing believes that he can handle his opponent. He even egged me on, saying that the guy had started fighting like a man. Now everything is just like in the wild. The fight is not for life but for death. This feeling, according to the stranger, cannot help but be liked. Hunter turns into a real, angry, growling monster. The laboratory prisoners make their way to the pier. Say and Hannah wait for everyone to get out of the pipe. Gina and Assistant Bean rush to them, thinking that the boys were captured by the pet shop. Gina asks who all the people on the dock are. Sam explains that they are all from the same lab cage. Hannah wonders why the head boy and assistant are so shabby. Gina explains that they were surrounded by a crowd of lab hybrids. Assistant Bean knocked them out with his hallucinogenic smoke, but you should get out of here quickly, because the effect does not last. Here, a furious and bloody Hunter lands nearby. Gina is horrified at what is happening. Sam and Hannah don't recognize the guy. The assistant almost drops his cigarette. Bean can't believe his eyes. Hunter lets out a deafening, wild roar. The guy doesn't recognize Gina and swings at her. The assistant assumes the stance of a tobacco hawk moth and smokes powerfully. It surrounds everyone with a dense, donut-shaped ring of smoke. Bean asks to stay in the circle in front of the smoke screen. The assistant once had the chance to see a similar condition, and now it is as terrible a sight as it was 5 years ago. The smoke screen goes off and Hunter freezes in place. The stranger does not understand how the prisoners were able to escape from the laboratory, but he decides that it doesn't matter. He doesn't have time to mess around with such non-entities. Hannah explains that this is the equal opponent she was talking about. Hunter shoots after the Red Wing. Gina screams at him to stop. The assistant explains that the guy is not himself now because his complex is out of control. Bean adds that Hunter went into a berserk state, something only certain species of insects are capable of. If Gina goes outside the smoke ring, she will be eaten. The headman cannot leave Hunter without help. She sees that the guy is all wounded and is afraid that he will simply be killed. Gina breaks free and runs into the smoke to help Hunter anyway, which she suggests Hannah do as well. She enthusiastically agrees to a rematch. The assistant apologizes and the students are enveloped in clouds of smoke. Ben has no intention of allowing anyone to leave the group. Sam notices Hunter's amplifier glasses. He picks them up and asks Sam #2 for a favor, to stop whoever gets in his way. With these words, Sam soars upward in a powerful jump. The assistant is surprised that the student was able to simply jump over the smoke screen, and he rushes towards the fugitive. But Sam Kang holds Bin's hands with words of apology, and Sam remembered that if you close the eyes of an enraged animal, it instantly calms it down. Hunter is currently in a rabid state, according to the assistant. It's a risky idea, but it might work. Everyone watches Sam's actions with their mouths open. Even the red-winged stranger is watching what is happening. Hunter thanks Sam. The guy doesn't remember what happened, but thanks to his neighbor, his perception became clear again. The assistant is puzzled as to how the guy with the out-of-control complex suddenly became normal again. When a neighbor asks if he's okay, a battered Hunter answers, presumably yes. The boy feels an inexplicable confidence that he can defeat the antlion. But the enemy is nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, behind Hunter, a stranger literally emerges from under the ground. Redwing grabs the guy by the neck and drags him away, saying that his specialty is the ability to burrow into the ground. The stranger suggests changing the environment to a more secluded one so that they will not be disturbed. The assistant watches in disbelief as the stranger carries Hunter away. Given the speed of the flight, it is unlikely that anyone will be able to catch up with him. Sam rushes after him, but the red-winged one advises him not to interfere with his lousy complex, because he and the dragonfly are in a different weight class. So even if Sam is not bad, flying opponents are definitely stronger. The student remembers the professor's words that no matter how good you are, there will always be someone stronger. But Sam categorically disagrees with simply standing in his place, watching as the villain drags away his neighbor. The stranger is confident that they will not be disturbed now and suggests continuing the duel. He is ready to start a bloodbath in the name of survival according to the laws of the jungle. Hunter sees a column of sand gathering around him. Gina comes to and finds out that she was out for 5 minutes. When asked what happened to Hunter, the assistant suggests answering later. Because they had guests, Bin sees that all hybrids have gone through the process of consuming the flesh of their own kind. The assistant ran out of cigarettes, meaning he won't be able to knock out the monsters again. Therefore, a collision is inevitable, which does not upset Hannah at all. Bin explains that we need to fight together. Hunter flies away from the sand. The stranger yells that his complex is cooler. A lightning strike follows. Hunter assumes a dragonfly stance and disagrees with the red-winged one about the complex. The guy uses hair hunting. Hunt is confident that as long as they are in the air, he will definitely be ahead of his opponent. The stranger's only advantage was in the trick with the sand at the pier. But the guy doesn't intend to let his opponent get down to earth. And in aerial combat, Hunter has no equal. The guy keeps punching. Hunter uses the air rifle. In response, the opponent assumes an antlion stance and uses imago recovery, retracting their pincers. Hunter feels his opponent become faster as the claws retract into his body. Redwing even manages to grab the guy by the leg, saying that he deliberately pulled the fight into the air. The stranger declares that Hunter is about to meet his end and pulls him down like a stone. Redwing is determined to create a giant dust storm, and nothing will stop him. But it was not to be, because at that very moment Sam appears on the battlefield. The stranger cannot believe his eyes. because he just doesn't understand how Sam ended up here. After all, he dragged the dragonfly to the opposite end of the island. It is not possible to run such a distance so quickly. Sam thanks the antlion for the opportunity to exercise. Hunter remembers asking the professor what he said to his neighbor after the competition because Sam had been thoughtful ever since. John explained that there was no need to worry, despite the generally accepted negative attitude towards the inferiority complex. Inferiority is just a feeling and can result in positive changes, because on the basis of inferiority, personal growth and the desire for self-improvement are perfectly activated. Redwing is extremely surprised by this turn of events. Sam declares with complete confidence that no one on Earth can compare to him. Redwing immediately cuts off Sam with his blade. The image of a smiling Gallia Shin emerges in his clouded consciousness. Dorm neighbors observe a cloud of dust where the antlion fell, but they are in no hurry to immediately approach the defeated enemy. Once the dust settled, it became clear this time the boys definitely won. Monsters run when they see meat in front of them. Sam's cellmates panic. But Hannah appears in front of them, excitedly flailing her scorpion claws. However, the skin of hybrids raised on meat is too tough for them to even leave a scratch on even the girl's claws. Sam Khan still finds the courage to say that the advancing monsters, although scary, are not as scary as the prison stag beetle. Hybrids are approaching inexorably. Huddled together, the cellmates once again decide that the end has come. The first monster rushes at the screaming victim, but his paw does not reach its intended target. Assistant Bin puts the hybrid down with a quick power move. The assistant explains that counterattacks on the monsters will be ineffective because their exoskeletons cannot be penetrated. But the limbs of hybrids can easily be broken, cut off, or burned. Simply, each of those present must choose a method of damaging these limbs that is convenient for them. Bean adds that Professor John trains his first-year students to avoid combat. Nevertheless, his students are quite prepared for such a scenario. After the incident at the fake warehouse, John G. took Gina Park to the gym and confirmed that she was feeling fine. John feels partly responsible for what happened, as it would not have happened if he had taught the girl how to fight. He claims that the cockroach is not only mega resilient but also physically very strong, and he knows what move only Gina can perform. The professor clarifies that the girl knows that before Nest, he was a hand-to-hand combat instructor in the U.S. Army. John is a former Army close combat instructor who taught jiu-jitsu-based fighting skills, and he intends to pass on his skills to Gina. Now the girl takes a stance like in a gym. During the fight, the assistant still manages to notice the girl's behavior. She uses special fighting techniques. This technique is specially designed for heavyweight opponents. Gina is very good at it. The girl performs flower shine flawlessly. Stunned cellmates watch as the fragile-looking Gina breaks her opponent's bones in a matter of seconds. They think she's an amazing woman. Hannah doesn't understand when Gina managed to learn all this. Apparently, it was not for nothing that her neighbor was elected as a head girl. The Scorpio girl's successes do not go beyond what is expected. But then, instead of the usual monsters that Hannah had dealt with quite successfully, a giant came along. Cellmates wonder where they could have kept such a giant. A compassionate Sam Khan yells at Hannah to run away from the giant, and he is already triumphantly hanging over the girl, considering her as fresh meat. Hannah doesn't have any special tricks. She hits the giant with a claw. He shakes his paw, not understanding what's going on. Hannah states that if she is unable to defeat the bastard by force, then she is simply not trying hard enough. She assumes the Emperor Scorpion stance, and it activates the glove's power by only 40%. The stunned assistant sees that Hannah interpreted his warning about her strength as advice to use the complex to increase her own strength. Gina praises Hannah's progress. Cellmates watch in amazement as two fragile girls fantastically knock down monsters in seconds. Sam Khan believes that this is the phenomenon that Sam was referring to when he spoke about the power of Nest University. Here, even the cellmates decide that if the students can cope, then they can do it too. Can once again understands the truth of Sam's words. The prisoners always had hope. By taking on the task together, the monsters are neutralized quite quickly. Moreover, no one was seriously injured. The assistant is alarmed by the approach of dawn. After all, then the few townspeople can see traces of the massacre. Bean asks Sam Khan to help him get rid of the bodies. The ant promises to throw the carcasses into the sewer through which the prisoners escaped from the laboratory. Then his grandfather runs up to him and asks him to help his grandson Sam. Sam Kang and his grandfather stand frozen in front of each other. Sam drags a heavy stranger over his shoulder and refuses his wounded neighbor's offers to help. On the pier, they find a grandfather and grandson standing face to face. Kan recalls that as a child he often went into the forest with his grandfather, where they collected wild herbs. One day the boy got lost. The frightened little boy cried, remembering that, according to his grandfather, naughty children are left in the forest. Fortunately, the grandfather soon found his tearful grandson, and his binoculars helped his grandfather with this. And now, in an emotional outburst, Kan reaches out to his grandfather, forgetting what he looks like now. But grandfather's binoculars immediately remind us of the state of affairs, because the grandfather will no longer see his grandson through the eyepiece. In front of him will be a monster, an ant-man. So Kan turns away and explains that his grandson is not here. The ant asks the old man to go home because his grandson will never come back. He is sure that his grandfather simply will not recognize him. So he decides to just pretend he's not there. Suddenly, the grandfather silently raises his old binoculars and looks closely at the ant. Hunter recalls seeing the broken, out-of-focus binoculars on the dock before. Grandfather explains that the binoculars are old. You can't see anything in them anymore. He himself is getting old. His memories are fading. Sometimes he feels bad, but when he looks through binoculars, he always sees his little grandson right before his eyes. The old man wonders if the ant thought that the grandfather would not recognize his grandson. The grandfather remembers the manner of speech and the voice of his grandson, who always chatters his teeth when he is worried. Finally, the grandson, who must have worked hard, returned home. A grandfather and grandson greet the sunrise kneeling in front of each other. Sam, looking at this happy picture, stands with his grandson's phone in his hands. After asking him to call the police, Kan wrote to his grandfather that he loved him. Ants are not inclined to care for their weak comrades. They get rid of them in order to survive themselves. But people voluntarily take care of the weak, despite the fact that feelings can drag them down. Because it is feelings that make us human. Nesta's security agents thoroughly investigate the discovered pet shop lab. Some of the absorbing individuals drowned in the flood, but thanks to the hole punched by Hannah, some managed to survive. They decide to euthanize them using equipment without entering the cages, and then transport them using special transport. A secret storage area is also discovered. Inside there is a terrible stench and a bunch of corpses locked for an unknown reason. As soon as the communication repeaters were repaired, the incident was reported to Nest. From there they sent a large ferry to transport all the insect people. In addition to the absorbing individuals, many more were found in the laboratory. Most of them agreed to Nest's guardianship. Sam Kang decides to stay on the island to look after his grandfather. The ant thanks Sam for giving him hope. Kan is confident that he will not be able to surpass all the students he knows and get the Cinderella. But he expresses hope that someday there will be enough of the drug for everyone who wants it. And until that happens, Kan asks Sam to keep fighting. At the pet shop hideout, a lab assistant expresses concern. The Black Island lab has been taken over by Nest, and the antlion has been captured. In response, Hong suggests playing chess. The lab assistant talks about the possible need to resign. The breeder jokes. According to his plan, the antlion has accomplished the task. The lab technician objects that it has not destroyed the lab. Han agrees that, unfortunately, it was not possible to completely destroy this place. However, among those who underwent feeding training there were those who did not lose their minds, and getting them out of there was a top priority. Now the breeder has lined up all his pieces on the board, and I'm ready to close the issue with Nest.